distinctly average. Oh, yeah, that's better. Yeah, get the old tweet
That's a
sent
point,
out.
actually. I should get your Twitch thing open, shouldn't I?
Yeah, if you want.
And then I can have the chat.
You can see what the chat is saying. Gotta hit them with the socials. Get the chat out. There we go.
Can you... You can't pop the chat out, can you?
Yes, you can.
How?
Well, it's normally one of the meatball menus. For some reason, yours isn't there.
Is it because it's not my stream?
Maybe. Is it at the bottom?
Report.
Oh, thanks.
No, it's not those things.
I feel like the screen goes lower than that because your screen isn't fully, like your actual window isn't full screened. Settings in the cog.
Ah.
There you go, pop out chat. There we go.
So I can minimise that. There we go. It's always a way. In fact, I might as well have it covering that bit.
Can we link this to the other Google Docs?
Oh.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, custom spells for.
Yeah, that's the one I'm on.
Yep. So clicking on that will take us over to this one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, is this where Blue creates her web and we're going to get a board put up and it's just
Look,
Google
I'm not
Docs?
allowed to have a physical board, so I have to make a digital one.
Improvise.
Hello, Das. I want a board. I've told you this
Hey,
before.
Das.
I want a board that I can put the thread on. I've even got my own red thread ready. Just
Red thread ready.
yeah. I just need the board that I can put my brain thoughts on.
It would be pretty barren then, wouldn't it?
Thanks.
Just the occasional picture of a kobold and a bird.
It's an important thing.
Christmas
to come
gift, I bought you a board. Okay. So what are we starting with then, Blue?
Okay.
Because
well,
I'm enthused for all of these homebrew ideas because they're all mine.
Yes,
'cause
you
I'm
want to
brilliant.
do all of the things.
I want to do all of them, but what's interesting you at the moment? That
Okay,
you
well, we had an idea for a spell yesterday, so I think that we should at least get that written down before it vanishes into the ether. So we had an idea for a spell which is very amusing to me because it is something that is very relevant to me because it keeps happening for some reason.
Is it because you're terrible and you get yourself into bad situations?
No, it's because I'm too good and the world knows that I have to be stopped. And that is in fact a spell to deal with the fact that people keep getting eaten, because it happens to me a lot in D&D, and for the first time as a DM I got to do it to someone else, which was hilarious and quite satisfying. So I thought that it would be fun to have a very niche spell to essentially try and force things to vomit.
Yeah.
And we came to the conclusion that it would be a natural spell, because it is something that a druid or a ranger would think to create, because they are the ones who deal with, monsters and animals and are most likely to get eaten.
There we go. That's a
This isn't Harry Potter.
Vomitus Nauus Pleus. That's a stand-in name for until we come up with it.
Okay. So this is where we've got to get out.
Yes. Other editions of the book, what spells similar? So, to me, if this is going to be a spell that it's got to be low level, because you need it to be something that both a ranger and a druid can use. Because rangers can obviously only go up to 5th level spells, and this is kind of going to be one of their quintessential sort of helping things. A druid should have access to it, but I don't think they would necessarily take it as much.
No, probably
unless they're going
not.
for a specific build. But for a hunter, I feel like this would be one of those, I need to do something now, kind of spells.
Right. So I think first, second is a good enough.
Spit that out.
Yep.
Is that the backup?
What do you have?
Put that down. Spit that out.
Spit that out. Okay, so I think between first and second is a good way to start, and honestly, the main factor in that is probably just going to be damage. I think, because I feel like being able to make something spit something up is fairly low level. Technically, if you have just a guy who's really strong, if you're dealing with just a regular sized animal,
Turner's ignoble indigestion.
Vomitus
Maximus.
Vomitus Maximus. Right, spells.
Well, let's have a look at what monsters we've got that are your typical eating.
Yeah, because as we discussed yesterday, technically anything that is probably huge or bigger could eat people.
Yeah.
They just don't necessarily have it specifically in their stat block. Yes, it would be a Constitution saving throw. 100%. This spell is a con save.
Yeah, make a note of that then. Love con save.
100% a Constitution saving throw. So for big creatures, it's unlikely that it will work anyway, because big creatures tend to have high Constitution. So, if anything, that might be another reason that it's a low level of the stuff that you're using it on probably is going to have high con, so it's not always likely it's going to succeed. So you don't necessarily want to be burning higher spell slots on something that's not going to succeed.
Well, yeah, because the alternative would be is if you cast a high level spell, you're obviously going to be doing a lot of damage, and that damage is therefore likely to cause it to throw up anyway. So it would be why would I use a high level spell to make it throw up when I can do damage as well as making it throw up?
A lot of creature stat blocks that have a swallow ability tend to have a little loophole of if you deal 30 points of damage or whatever.
Well, that's what I just load up here. The Banderhob.
Banderhob.
So bite attack against whatever creature. The swallowed creature is blinded and restrained, has total cover, takes damage, blah blah blah. Creature is reduced to 0 hit points, stops taking damage and becomes stable.
Because Banderhobs are designed to capture people.
Oh yeah,
so they don't kill them specifically.
Can only have one creature swallowed at a time. It can regurgitate a creature at any time and spaced within 5 feet. The creature exploded. Banderhob does. Isn't that actually a way to get it to throw up?
Again, Banderhob might actually be a bad example because it's specifically meant to capture people.
So the only way to get them out is to kill them. Oh, that's interesting. Okay,
so,
well we've learned something.
Yeah. So try.
Perhaps a spell that will make them take damage and vomit the character. Yeah, we were thinking that, but we the missile on the wall behind. What? Mistletoe? There isn't any mistletoe.
There's no mistletoe there. It's just tinsel.
Yeah, we were thinking we'll do a little bit of damage, but the damage wouldn't be the main thing because obviously if you're going to do a lot of damage anyway, you'd rather just pick the
tinsel, not the missile.
The
the tinsel looks like ears.
No wait.
There you go. Hey.
Yeah, we were thinking a small amount of damage, but the damage wouldn't be the main reason for the use of the spell.
Yeah, basically this was spawned from the idea of, as I said, I was DMing my session on Friday, and a character got eaten. And outside of doing damage, there's not a lot you can do to help a person. And so we just thought was well, maybe we could make a niche spell for this situation, because when a creature is swallowed, they have full cover, and they are restrained, so they can't be healed.
I can't stop looking at them fucking ears now. For fuck's sake.
Then cover up the camera.
Annoying. It's completely derailed me.
You can't heal them because you can't see them. They have full cover, and it's hard to help people, which obviously adds to the drama. But it would be nice if there is like a niche spell, like a ranger again, the kind of person who is, prepared to deal with this kind of thing. Like, I'm an expert of dealing with
something
creatures.
that separates a ranger then more so from a fighter is that the spells that I bring with me are specifically for dealing with these kind of monsters that do these kind of things.
Yeah, and as you say, it could be used as a distraction just to make a guard vomit or something.
Yeah, it would. We wanted. That was another point that we wanted to do for the spells that we're coming up with, is to have them have alternative uses. So it's like if you're in one situation, it will do one thing. That's the default. But if it's not under those exact situation, it will still be able to do something, just not specifically that.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking of heat metal. Like, heat metal isn't, specifically a damaging spell. It just sort of does damage as a secondary effect. The main reason you do it is to try to get people to drop stuff or things like that. So
it has a two-purpose thing. It's like if you target the armor, you're doing it because it's damaged because they can't get away from it. But if you do it on an item, you're disarming them from a distance, and it can be very handy in certain situations.
Right.
Sort of like Tasha's hideous laughter, but as a vomiting thing instead.
So having a little look at the schools of magic, I think potentially this is going to be transmutation.
Yeah, here's one. If the Behir takes 30 damage or more in a single turn
from the swallowed creature.
Okay.
So if a person is unconscious, that will do nothing. Because that was something that happened in my session, is that the person who got swallowed then fell unconscious. So there was literally nothing they could have done, and they were literally waiting for their team members, and it could have died, and it could have gone terribly.
Oh, that's interesting. So the Behir, it doesn't actually say if anyone attacks it from outside, it's specifically from the swallowed creature.
That's interesting. Look at the Remoraz, because that's what they were fighting, a Remoraz.
I've just put in swallow, and I'm just going through basically all the creatures. The Remoraz. The Remoraz takes 30 damage or more in a single turn from a creature inside it. The Remoraz must succeed a DC 15 con save. So have we been anticipating this wrong then? So this spell would actually make more sense, because this is a way for someone outside
to help. So yeah, if
that's weird though, because you do normally think that an outside creature can help, because otherwise it's like, well, if you get swallowed at the start of the fight, you've basically now got to kill a Remoraz without one of your teammates there.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. So yeah, this spell probably has a good use. It lets somebody help.
Yeah, and so the idea being that for the Remoraz as an example, having to deal 30 damage is a lot. So if you have a low level spell where it's like, the main thing I'm trying to do is make you regurgitate, it's not really going to do a lot of damage. But I have to burn a spell slot, and you have to fail to save.
And you think, if this is like a fighter who gets swallowed, and it's like, it says 30 damage or more on a single turn, and you got to think, if he's got like a sword or something and he's doing a D10, he's got to hit max damage, and if he's got 3 attacks, so he's doing 2 attacks and a bonus action attack, say, he's still got to hit max damage.
More or less.
And he's doing everything he physically can. You literally cannot do more, and he still cannot get out.
Yeah.
So it is sort of you're boned.
It might not be a first level, it might be more of a second level.
Maybe second level.
But that also makes sense for the type of creatures, because if you get it as a first level spell, there's not really a lot of things that you should be fighting at first level
that can swallow you.
Unless you've got a DM that really doesn't like you.
Yeah.
So it might be more of a second level thing.
Yeah. So
at a push third, but if it's going to third, I feel like it's got to do a little bit of something extra, just a tad, just to spice it a bit.
Yeah. It's one. So
that's interesting. I didn't realise that.
Coming back to the schools of magic, just to sort of get the spell nailed down. I don't think it's abjuration, because it's not protective. It's not creating a barrier. You could argue it's negating a harmful effect, but it's not banishing.
The actual spell itself, not the result. The actual spell itself is causing the creature to involuntary vomit.
Yeah,
that's a harmful thing.
It's not conjuration. We're not conjuring anything. It's not divination. It's not enchantment. This is influencing and controlling behaviour is enchantment. Evocation is so maybe
a bit of a stretch. Dunno.
Yeah, so maybe evocation is energy, so summoning fire, lightning.
Well, here's a good example. Das gave a good example with Tasha's hideous laughter. What does Tasha's fall under?
I think that's enchantment.
Because it makes a little bit of, it kind of fits into that.
Yeah, I don't think it's necromancy, because that's energy.
Yeah,
that's life.
Tasha's is an enchantment, and I mean, I suppose it is.
I think it's between enchantment or transmutation, because transmutation says it changes the properties of a creature, object, or environment.
Well, you're not changing the properties. You're affecting them, but you're not changing their stomach into something else.
I mean, I think blight is specifically like necromancy because it does like I think blight is specifically necromancy because it does necromantic damage. What's What's contagion? Because contagion is like inflicting an illness on somebody.
I'm not as familiar with spells as you guys are. I don't usually play spellcasters, so off the top of my head, couldn't tell you.
Compelled duel, conjure barrage, conjuring elemental. Contagion. It is a necromancy.
What does contagion do again? I'm not familiar.
Contagion is the one where it's a touch spell, and you can give them disadvantage on like a particular stat.
Your touch inflicts disease. Well, we're not inflicting a disease per se. We're basically just affecting all of their nervous system, their sort of.
That's kind of what this does. So we've got like.
Yeah, but that says it infects them with a disease, and then the disease does something to them. So unless you want this to be something where, like you said before, it inflicts poison upon them, a poisonous effect, then that could count it as necromancy.
Well, I suppose we have to decide what is the spell specifically going to do, because I think we said that there were two things that this could do, which was either it could like cause the stomach acid in the stomach to sort of roil up and start to come back up, as in vomiting, or we were going to have it cause the stomach muscles to tense, to retch, and cause the thing to vomit up. So which of those two things is more likely? We were kind of leaning towards the muscles, because we said that there are creatures that can be, resistant to acid damage, so it doesn't make sense that their own acid hurts them, like a black dragon.
Yeah, because we were thinking, like, if you were to use this on, say, like a troll, for example, we've got to think of, like, people trying to cheese it, and so if they say, oh, well, I've got a spell that does acid damage because it will make the troll retch up, and therefore they'll do acid damage to themselves, so therefore their own body will be preventing them from their own regenerative abilities. We were like, that seems a bit
of a loophole.
Bit of a loophole there of like, well, obviously the troll, if it's got stomach acids or the equivalent of stomach acids, it shouldn't really be able to do that, like in the old days where people used to cheese fighting a Tarrasque by doing acid spray as a cantrip or something, because that would technically fit all the criteria.
It took acid damage this turn, so it can't regen, even though it took the equivalent of someone spitting on it.
Yeah, so we don't want to give it that, so we were like, we're leaning away from that thing until the end of the caster's next turn. Cast it on a creature, make creatures in the monster's stomach immune to damage. That could help. That could be a... I don't know if that would be for this spell, but that's a cool alternate spell.
It's a cool alternate spell. The problem is that a lot of prerequisites for spells is being on is sight or sound. A creature that you can see or a creature that can hear you, and that is the main issue with creatures being swallowed. When we were like, well, a lot of healing spells will say, a creature that you can see, and it's like, well, as soon as somebody's swallowed, you can't see them anymore. So
plus, if you use things like healing word, technically, although you could argue that being inside a creature would mean that it would be difficult to hear things, you're not technically deafened, you don't have the deafened condition, so things like healing word could keep people alive while inside, because that one you only need to be able to hear them to heal it. It's a word, so you can just shout and you can heal them inside. But where this particular spell came from was, we were like, right, if you're living in a D&D world, what kind of spells are you going to attempt to try and invent to help you out in the wilderness? And I feel like a spell where it's like you could render somebody immune to damage while they're inside a creature, you would probably put more effort into getting them out of the creature, rather than like, you're perfectly safe, you've just been swallowed by a creature, but you're not taking damage. It's like
the priority is to get them out.
Yeah, get them to safety as quickly as possible. So I feel like people would put more effort into, making the creature throw up and undoing that, rather than just, making them safe while they're in there.
Yeah, it's like if somebody's on fire and someone comes up and casts resistance on them and go, don't worry, you're resistant to fire damage now, and the person's there going, I would rather not be on fire.
Yeah. Rather than granting me resistance to fire, put the fire out, throw water on me.
I would rather not be on fire. So it's like, don't worry, you're not going to be digested. But it's like, cool, I would rather not be in this thing's stomach, though.
Okay, well that's a better point from Das, where you could cast on a creature and it's for a certain duration, anything that the Behir swallows is immune to damage. I don't know if immune might be a bit powerful, but you could definitely put resistance on there.
You could. what's the ruling on full cover? Because that's the wording that they put on a lot of swallow moves, is that when you are swallowed, you have full cover. So it's like, well, people can't target you with attacks because you have full cover.
Yeah.
So the only damage you need to be resistant to is the stomach, basically.
Yeah, that's basically
Okay.
what that means. So you would just put a thing in, like, when you cast this spell, any creature that is swallowed by the target has resistance to any damage.
Because if you're using the fireball example, the wizard can cast fireball anyway. You have full cover. Fireball cannot hit you.
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, is what I'm saying.
But this is like an alternative spell that Das is coming up with, which could be a lower tier spell, because if you're just granting resistance to it, it's not great, but it could help.
Yeah.
Or if you do want to raise the spell level for that one, it could be that it makes it easier for you to save yourself by lowering how much damage you need to do. Maybe it could be like it halves the damage or something.
Maybe.
You only need to inflict half the damage in order to try and escape. So it's like it's helping you, but it's not doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've been swallowed by the what was it, the Remoraz that was in this example, for example? I've lost the thing. Oh, there we go. I've got the Taras because that was the next one up. For that one, you have to deal 60 points of damage in a single turn. If you say that you can halve it, or you can lower that number by an amount by casting a spell on them, you've still got to hit that number. It's not solved your problem for you.
You got to remember that I don't think it said it on the Taras, but on the Remoraz, but it says there you got to deal 60 damage, and then it's got to make a con save. And again, a freaking Tarrasque's got +10 to its con, so it's not likely. And I mean, again, if you're like, cool, I'm going to do a con spell, it's not likely that it's going to succeed.
Yeah, spellcasters as dasses are more in trouble if they've been swallowed.
Yes.
Unless they have chosen very specific spells, because if you're inside a creature as a cleric, for example, and you go, cool, I'm going to break out my inflict wounds, that's a bad day to be the creature. But as you know, as he says, if you're a melee creature, a fighter or something, it's like, well, all you've done now is guaranteed that I'm going to hit you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that could be an alternate spell. I like the idea of that one. I don't know, would that necessarily be a nature one to give resistance to being swallowed by a creature? That could be more of an arcane thing. Don't know. It's difficult because arcane, you can argue arcane for anything.
You can argue arcane. No, I think it would still be a nature thing, because you could argue that this spell comes round. You could say that a resistance spell could come into existence for a need to resist poisonous gases in a swamp, resist an acid pool. So this resistance spell is less about being resistant to being swallowed and more about being resistant to acid, because that's what happens when you get swallowed. The damage that you're taking is from being digested in stomach acid. So are we just recreating elemental resistance spells because those already exist?
No, because this one, it's the way that Das has worded it. His idea would be, you go into a fight and it's like, holy shit, it's a Bahia. Mm-hmm. Oh fuck. So then the ranger or the druid is going to say, okay, well, I know what tactic this thing's going to have, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast a spell that targets specifically the creature, not my allies, that's targeting the creature. If it swallows any of us for the duration, we have resistance to any damage that takes place while we're inside. And then I was thinking, as a caveat, to make it a bit of a higher level spell, because low levels enemies don't swallow you, like bugbears and stuff that you're going to fight. This is, you're going up against a higher level creature. To give it that little bit of an edge, it's like you have resistance to damage while you're inside, and either the con save that they make to stop throwing you up is made at disadvantage, or the damage that you need in order to get yourself out is halved, or something along the lines of, if you're basically casting something on this creature that for the duration until you save, you can't. Your swallow is essentially harder for you to maintain because we have an easier time getting out, so it doesn't do as much to us. It's no longer one of your most threatening things.
Right.
That's what I'm getting from the spell.
So would you want to put that as
the only issue with spells for making creatures vomit is, as you can almost always say con save for it, but nearly anything that eats people will always have a high con. Maybe just disadvantage on the con save will be helpful. Yeah. Rather than lowering the threshold, giving something disadvantage, at least it gives you more of a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And that's a fighting chance per turn.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
that is the general gist of this spell, is that it is meant to give you a fighting chance, because
So resistance from any damage caused by the swallow effect is the main thing from that, and disadvantage for the creature's con saves to resist vomiting. That's a cool spell. That one could be, you know, again a second or third level kind of spell. So you've got one which is just the instant, you know, we're just trying to get you out. You fail the saving throw and you get out. Doesn't really do a lot of damage. And then the other one's just a precaution.
Well, you said you liked the idea of making spells that have different effects and more utility based on their level. So instead of making two different spells here, why don't we just have it's a first level spell, but the higher level casting is if you cast this at like second level or higher, it also does this. You said that was something that you liked the idea of.
It is, but I feel like that would be a lot to put on one, because that's basically two completely different effects. They have the same motivation behind them, but they are two kind of, you know, there's going to be a lot of wording in there of like, if you cast it first level, it does this thing, but if you cast it second level, it doesn't do anything that the first part says, it does this instead. I don't want it to be that black or white, you know.
I mean, you know, again, looks at Contagion. It's just, you know, it's got a million different effects, so...
But you have to choose between one of them.
I guess, yeah.
You know, if you've got the choice of like, do I cast this spell to cause my ally to come back, or do I cast this spell to just give them resistance? It's like, it's a bit too far apart.
Okay.
You know. So I think having them as two separate spells works. My argument would have been, if you do like the vomiting spell, for example, if you cast that at higher levels, you could have it where it's like, if you cast this at like 5th or 6th level spell, even if the creature saves, it could be that they suffer some sort of penalty as well, and that's what makes this non-damaging spell, it gives it a little bit more of a kick.
Yeah.
That was the idea I was going down, but
Yes.
not to change the description entirely.
Well, I suppose,
that would be confusing.
I suppose
for the player.
if we're now dividing this into two spells, again, is heat metal a good comparison? Because heat metal doesn't really have a higher level cast; it just does what it does. So do we just make the you're going to be sick now spell is just a first level, and that's all it does? It's just you're going to be sick now.
On a failed save, yeah, I mean, we could do.
Yeah, and then you've got the more specific one of you've been swallowed.
Okay.
Because again, if you just have a low level spell that is you're going to be sick, then that opens it up for players to again use it creatively and make a guard be sick or something, you know.
Yeah, second level spells where the weird spells go, which is pretty apt description.
It's true.
It's pretty apt description.
Yeah.
When you cast at 3rd or higher, reduce the damage threshold for vomit by 10 per level. That could work actually.
Yeah, heat metal is second level, so that's a good comparison.
Yeah, second level seems more fitting than first. It not just because of like damage or the effects or anything, just based on the creatures that you know. If when you've got access and you're at first level, if you're someone who doesn't know the game too well and you think, oh, that sounds like a really useful one, being able to save my friends if they've been swallowed, and it could be like 3 or 4 levels before you fight anything that even potentially has that option, and the idea might not even throw it at you. So you're carrying around this spell that just doesn't do anything. You're looking for material
Spell
components. Herbs that make you vomit. That's now in your Google history.
Yep,
forever.
sure is.
So, if a creature has been swallowed, bit of damage and throw at the creature.
Amaryllis, that's pretty funny.
If a creature hasn't been swallowed, i.e. empty creature, shall we say. The creature becomes poisoned, did we say? For a minute?
We suggested having the poisoned effect
With saves.
with a save, yeah. Because we suggested
Each
that
turn,
was
so.
kind of what it would do. As bad as skunk smells are, I don't think I've ever seen anybody throw up from the stink of a skunk. I think it's just oh god.
Couldn't. I'm not an animal person.
We don't have skunks in this country, so we couldn't tell you. I think again, being druids and rangers, I feel like using a herb because it's kind of like a medicine.
Using the land, basically.
Because that's what they do. You know, it's what they used to do back then. It's like, oh, you're unwell. Let's vomit the demon out of you. There we go.
So yeah, this is what I meant by like an alternate use. So that if you take the spell to cause a creature to vomit, it's like on the one hand, if someone's been swallowed, you can save them and do a little bit of damage. If there isn't anyone in them, it's not a case of, well, I've got a spell that doesn't do anything, I can't use it at all. It's like you can still use it, it will do something, it just might not be the thing that you want, you know. Like with Revivify, when you carry Revivify around, that has one purpose. There's only one thing that is needed for, but it is an important one. Whereas if you take something like Walk on Water, if you don't ever come across a situation where you might need it, it's like, well, I've kind of wasted my spell slot because, well, my prepared spell list. Whereas with this one, it's like, well, I can take it and it will do something if we go up against a creature, but you know, it has a better purpose, shall we say. There is a plant that smells as a dead body.
Yes, there is. It's the Rafflesia, or however it's pronounced, which is the flower that Vileplume is based off of. Big, enormous, giant red thing known as the corpse flower. Apparently, very, very helpfully, there is a very well-known plant which can induce vomiting, which is aconite, which is also known as monkshood or wolfsbane, which everybody knows. So I think that that's a suitable spell component, is some wolfsbane. Aconite, monkshood, also known as wolfsbane, leopardsbane, mousebane, women's bane, devil's helmet, the queen of poisons, and blue rocket. I'm getting the vibe that just aconite is a very bad flower and it is not good for many things at all.
Blue rocket, the aptly named opposite of red rocket. Bonk.
Shut up.
Bonk. Okay, so if we look at the spell damage thing, it says that for a second level spell, it should do approximately 3d10, or in the range of 3d10 damage. So you're talking between sort of 3 and 30. For this spell, because we don't want it to be, it's not its primary purpose to do damage. I'm thinking of using like a first level or even a cantrip level's damage range, because it's not what it's designed for. It's more of its effect that it creates. So what's Tasha's Hideous Laughter in terms of damage is, I suppose, a good comparison.
I don't believe it does damage, it's purely debilitating.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Surely it does like a d6 or something.
Creature of your choice that you can see within range perceives everything as hilariously funny and falls over in a fit of laughter. The target must succeed a wisdom saving throw or fall prone and become incapacitated, unable to stand for the duration. At the end of its turn, the creature can make another wisdom saving throw. Target has advantage on the saving throw if it's triggered by damage. On the 6th spell ends, no damage. It's just incapacitating somebody.
Okay, well, what about Heat Metal then? Because that was our other...
Yeah, that does damage.
Heat Metal, 2d8 fire damage, and that carries an effect, because if it's an object that you're holding, you have to drop it on the fail of a save. So Heat Metal is a pretty perfect comparison. So I would say something along the lines of like 2d8, but it would be bludgeoning damage, because obviously it's causing you to convulse, and you know, it's making all your internal organs sort of strain and, you know, contract unpleasantly. Okay, so spell component, nice. Con save, 2d8 bludgeoning damage on a fail, half on a success. If creature has been swallowed, throw up the creature on a fail, not on a success. If the creature hasn't been swallowed, the creature becomes poisoned for a minute on a fail. Oops, can't even spell fail. On a fail with saves each at end of each turn, not on a success. So there's the basics for our spell. Now we've got to think range. So default range is usually about 30 feet, isn't it?
30 is the default.
Do we feel it needs to be a touch, I suppose, is the best question.
It has potential to be a touch spell.
Does that make it a bit more like, because I suppose if you think about, well, the only creature that can technically save itself is something that's on the inside. So regardless of how much damage you do on the outside, whether you stand next to it or stood away from it, doesn't, by the rules of the game, not by our home rules, because I think it should be something where You know, it's pretty iconic, isn't it? You see, like, the barbarian goes over and just, does a massive punch into the stomach of a creature, and it goes bleh all over the place.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was saying at the start of, like, why we wanted a spell, because if you're just dealing with a regular, in this instance you're not thinking of something that swallowed something, if you just want a creature to spit something out, it's like, you don't technically need a spell for that, you just need somebody who can, like, make someone gag. So this spell is specifically generally going to be targeting, a creature, so...
Well, heat metal has a range of 60 feet.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
I suppose another thing to consider is if a creature has swallowed something and then tries to fuck off, you don't want to touch spell, because it's like I'm trying to help my friend out here, so I suppose you do want to give it some range. So
I suppose Das is a fair point of, like, if you want it to be more powerful, make it touch. If you want it to be weaker, make it a ranged spell. The key point of this spell is not the damage, it is the act of making something be sick.
So that's a good point then, so keep it ranged.
So keep it ranged and make it do less damage, because damage is not the point of the spell.
Well, heat metal is a good example, so I would say that the range for that, 60 feet seems good to me. 60 foot range.
Yeah.
I like that. For a warforge wearing heavy armour, it takes 1 hour for them to doff armour, so it was pretty good before he managed to flee. Oof. Jesus.
It's very mean.
That is a hell of a way to use heat metal. That's oof.
That's what most people use heat metal for, because most people are dicks. As soon as people discover the spell, I'm like, can I cast this on his armor and cook him alive? And every DM goes, what is wrong with you? But everybody does it.
This is just a personal point, though. I think that spells like that, where it's like, this spell is basically terminal to you, I think that's pretty fitting of spells.
It's magic at the end of the day.
It's magic, for Christ's sake, If you don't have the answer to it, it's the same as, like, getting infected with a disease. If you don't have anything that's going to combat that, you're dead. Not dead immediately, but you're pretty screwed. But then on the counter side to that would be to buff martial classes and be like, well, the reason why the fighter is scary is because, alright, he won't kill you in a week, he'll kill you in a few seconds. He's just going to keep hacking it to you until you stop moving.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, this is another thing that we want to homebrew eventually, of just, like... As much as they try to balance D&D, it is just a shame that as you get to higher levels, the wizards and the druids and the clerics can do so much, and pretty much every martial class, whether it's a barbarian, a fighter, or a rogue, goes, what can you do? I can hit things very, very hard. And there's no variance in that.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like, yes, you're technically doing a similar amount of damage, because you're rolling, like, 10d6, so you're doing a fireball's worth of damage, but you're not being able to do anything creative with that, so that's why we have, like, another homebrew thing that we're going to do in the future of, like, let's give martial classes more love, because currently it's just I attack, and it gets boring.
Redundant.
It gets
pretty
boring.
Fast.
Wizard, what are you doing on your turn? I'm casting this spell to create this effect, to do this and make the creature do this. Fighter, what are you doing? I hit it.
Yeah.
Barbarian, what are you doing? I hit it.
I hit it again.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep hitting it. My turn is pretty easy. I'm just going to keep
numbers-wise, it is balanced, because numbers-wise you're doing a lot of damage, but creatively it's not as interesting. But that's another homebrew that we're going to tackle in the future. I'm trying to see if there's any example of plants being used for wording on components.
Guy who's joined Hast is cruel as fuck. Enhanced interrogation, you put a coin on the tongue of a bandit and you cast heat metal on it until he talks.
That's fucked up.
I don't think you qualify for lawful good, my friend.
That's not lawful
so
good.
I really don't feel like you qualify for that.
That's
I don't know
not
what law
lawful
you're
good.
following. The law of me. I like it, it's cool, but holy shit is it dark. Casting time is going to be an action.
I put that at like lawful, like neutral or evil.
That's torture. That is torture at the end of the day. That's definitely evil.
It's hard to define. It's hard to define torture as good, because if you say I'm doing it for the greater good, it's like, cool, that's a very evil perspective you have on life then. Semantic then.
Follow the laws of nature.
Is this going to be the full verbal semantic material?
Does it need verbal?
Most spells are VSM, VSM, VS.
I suppose the thing to think of is there a situation which we can imagine where you're fighting against something and you would be unable to speak?
I guess the thing...
If this is a druid spell, when they need to be in their beast form and use it, verbal... Is that a thing for beast spells? I'm not familiar with druids and how that ability works.
The higher level druid ability.
Because I'm just thinking from a druid's point of view, if they know they're going to be in a situation where they can't speak, they're not going to design many necessary spells like this around needing to speak. Should be the 18th level beast speech, which is before the circles. Here.
These spells. You can perform the semantic and verbal components of a druid spell while in beast shape, but you aren't able to provide material components. So if your DM is using material components things, you do still have to have them with you.
So this would be something that they would have to use whilst not in beast form, basically, because we've given it a material component, which does make sense.
Yeah. Let me flip back to the status conditions. Let me check something. Because creatures are technically restrained.
Inside, yeah.
Inside. Okay. Being restrained doesn't technically affect semantic components.
Oh, you're thinking if they're
if
trying to save themselves.
If they're restrained, can you wave your hands to cast a spell? And there's not really anything in the restrained condition that says you can't.
Okay. So the duration. Would it? Do we make it a concentration for the poison condition afterwards, or would it just be an instantaneous thing, and then we just put in the description that you are poisoned for 1 minute? I think that's a thing, isn't it? Because technically the duration of the spell is instant, but your body is then affected.
The poison condition is our way of saying, you know, you've just been sick, and people do not feel very good after they have been sick. You know, once they get over it, they get over it. So yeah, I don't think it actually does need to be a concentration.
Now we just need a name for it. I'm playing a Warforge cleric, just hit level 6, so I have fire res and a nice cozy 23 natural AC.
Nice.
Took the defensive fighting style, shield and splint armor. There is a point to be made. Bear hug, cast heat metal on myself.
Ooh, brutal.
Fucking hell, what is his name? Martyr.
Martyr.
I mean, it depends if you wanted to take up a few levels of fighter or something, the new fighting style for unarmed combat, if you've grabbed somebody, you deal a d4 damage to them at the start of your turn, I think it is, if you've got somebody grappled, a d4 bludgeoning. So you could stack that with heat metal or something, or go down like the barbarian route of the spiked armor. You could get a lot of damage of just be like, when my turn starts, just by hugging you, I hurt
What is your what is your battle strategy? I hug people.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's Huggy Wuggy.
Oh no! Ah!
How to make Huggy Wuggy in 5e. Okay, so then we need the description, so... I mean, we can work on that later. We don't need a higher level casting, I don't feel.
Not for this one, because we've got the other spell.
Yeah, so that one can disappear, but essentially that covers everything that we were looking for with that. A con save, 2d8 bludgeoning on a fail, half on a success, and then it's the two different versions of it, of if it's swallowed, if a creature or object, because it could have swallowed something important.
Yes, that's important to remember. It is about, you can also get an item back.
And like you said, the DM could throw a fun curveball there of if they wanted to, if they think, oh, this will be more fun, it's instead of saying, you know, like they say, oh, well, the creature hasn't swallowed anything because we've not seen it swallow anything, so it needs to make a con save or it becomes poison for a minute, and the DM goes, just read out what happens if it has swallowed something. Why do you want to know that?
Excuse me?
And then they can insert a plot point.
Yeah.
Like you said, that would be quite cool.
Yeah, remember when we found that ant keg? Then we got our bag of holding in Blundsand because we
Yes.
killed an Ankeg and we cut open its stomach and it was like, oh, there's loot in here.
So in that
If we'd had that
particular
spell,
yeah, we
this
might have been
spell
able
would
to
have
get
made
it
it
earlier.
vomit up the bag.
Yeah, that would have been pretty sick.
So then, if the creature runs away, you still get loot.
Yeah. So the
So
DM
you
can
could
use
technically
that.
just let it go. If a creature decides to run away, it's like, oh, we'll let it go. It's fine.
This Hass dude is hardcore as fuck. Hit level 17, got immunity to fire, grappled a frost giant and threw them both into a volcano.
Swam out unscathed. Jesus. That's the kind of stuff you want to do at high levels, though, in D&D. That's why you get to high levels.
How much of your gear was immune? Everything that remained on him when he crawled out of the fire was immune. A himself.
If you're playing a Warforged, then your armor is you. So
You can wear armor
You
as
can
an
wear
Warforged,
armor,
but there's
but-
there's more specific rules for that. He'd be walking out naked.
yeah, but if he's a Warforged and his armor's just him, then it's fine.
Okay, so now we move on. We're happy with that spell. We feel like that fills a niche in the mind of a druid or a ranger that's going around, and they're like, I have this spell on me, so if I'm out and about, I can get myself or friends out of a delicate situation.
Yeah, and on the off chance that you're in a city somewhere, it's like, I've got the option to do some shenanigans, because there's always the option that a bard can learn this with their class secrets, and the bard can just be like, I'm going to make the guard throw up.
I'm thinking, do we put in a thing where if it's like if you use touch, it's like gives disadvantage, but I feel like it's overcomplicating.
That's
the spell.
overcomplicating
It's not
it.
necessary really. Does the job. That would be something where it's like, if I use this as a touch because I'm inside them, can I do this? And then that could be down to the DM of like, all right, you've justified it, I'll let you do it. But I think
I'm
as
just trying to think of what we could call it.
a name for it.
Yeah. I don't think it should be character name something, because
I was just thinking that because it's your spell. Do you want to name it after one of your druids, like Skymeria or
because
whatever?
the thing is that when you name spell after a person, that then has the knock-on effect of like, well, who is this person? Because
Alistair's Homebrew. Come on, that's a brilliant name.
Nope.
Because
because that's how all the spells are. You have Tasha's laughter, and it's like, well, Tasha is a character who's
Alistair's a character. He's amazing.
not in 5e lore.
But this is our homebrew. We can put our characters in it. That's what makes it brilliant. Alistair's Homebrew is a fantastic name for it. It's so fitting. Ignoble indigestion.
That's not a bad one.
Ignoble indigestion.
Yeah. The indigestion is a good part as well, definitely.
Because that is the main part of it, to throw up. Melf was Gygax's brother. Goes, why did that family have such weird names?
Melf Gygax.
I suppose Gary. But even still, here's my son, Gary. Here's his brother, Melf.
Melf has got to be a nickname.
It's gotta be. And Melf was okay. His
Mel-
character.
yeah.
Okay.
So Melf is a character in D&D
Yeah,
lore now,
that's
much like
fair.
Mordekainen. If you look him up, he's got
Gygax's brother's character.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you look him up, he's got backstory and he's got lore and stuff. Obviously, the origin of like he was just this.
Can't fucking spell. Noble indigestion. I like that.
It's a cool name.
There we go. So, aside from doing the actual description,
Yeah.
but that will be,
So,
tidy that up, and that's
Constitution
basically
saving throw. 2d8 bludgeoning damage on a fail, half and a success. If a creature or an object that has been swallowed by the creature is thrown up on a fail but not on a success. If the creature hasn't been swallowed, i.e. The stomach is empty, the creature becomes poisoned for a minute on a fail with saves at the end of its turn.
not
Yeah.
on a success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simple enough.
Yeah, we can do the proper wording afterwards if we want. So that's part one, which is basically just the spit it out spell.
A mountain as a base. That
That's
sounds like Stangy's wet dream, doesn't it?
This is Minecraft, just like, oh, there's a mountain, we're just gonna hollow it out.
Yeah, he
and
just stops adventuring though, and he's just like, this is my mountain.
I don't need to be a hero anymore. I just have a mountain that I can live in.
Okay, so moving on to.
So we've done part one, which is the spit it out spell. Now we've got the spell, which is what do you do?
Get that out your mouth.
Yeah. What do you have? So now we've got the what do you do if you have been eaten specifically.
Yeah, this is the one where it's like, I feel like essentially this Dash's spell here is like, you know, ignoble indigestion is fine, but it's a save somebody once and the spell slot's gone. This is going to be, I'm going to cast this on you, so if you swallow multiple people, either, you know, at the same time or one at a time or something, like you spit one up and then you swallow someone else, spit one up, swallow someone else, I'm going to make it I'm going to make that attack of yours do less damage, you know, for the duration of the fight, essentially. That's what that's going to be. So, you know, I can't get him to throw you up, but I can make him, you know, a really shit attack. Like giving someone disadvantage on an attack. This is your main attack. I'm going to make it less effective. That's not how that's written, but I'll tidy that up for you.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what have I done? Oh no! I've made it worse. I can't do it.
Yeah. Again, time is variable, but minute is a good standing point.
A minute for a fight, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess verbal semantic material we can keep the same, and the same material, because it's still. I actually no, because this isn't the one about making them sick. This is the protective one. So potentially no.
Honey.
Honey.
Well, yeah, because the creature that it swallowed, they're sort of surrounded by healing stuff in a way, or protective stuff. It's a protective on the inside. Honey. A drop of honey.
Have some honey, it will settle your stomach.
Mint!
Mint, yes!
Honey and mint, yes!
I think mint is better, because honey's more for coughs. A sprig of mint. It'll settle your stomach. Spook's anti-acid.
Rennie's anti-acid.
Oh dear.
What's the name of the guy from the Gaviscon commercial?
I don't know.
Fred the Fireman. Oh, Jesus. An elevator pitch.
Alistair's anti-acid.
Alistair's anti-acid. Tempted.
No, no.
Cursed. A sprig of mint.
Sprig
okay,
of mint.
so the swallow resistance, would that have a lesser range? Would it be
potentially,
would
also,
abjuration?
this is an abjuration.
Abjuration, yeah.
Because this is a protective spell.
Yeah.
Second level, potentially a higher level. But you got,
for resistance? I don't feel like it. It's a very niche resistance as well. It's not a grandiose resistance.
The thing to remember is when you're considering going from second level to third, it's always the third level is fireball level.
Yeah.
That's the power level that you've got to take into consideration.
I am Norwegian, sorry if my grammar suffers from time to time.
That's
I'm
okay.
fighting the Norwegian spell check. That's okay. Blue's a native speaker of English and she fucks up constantly. What was it you said yesterday, love, when you were revising for your stats?
My stats. It's meant to be SATs.
Not your SATs.
SATs.
Your stats.
My stats.
Had me confused for a good minute.
I failed English. The language that I have been born and raised to speak, I failed. I didn't
Primary school,
fail
you had
English.
to study stats. What kind of school did you go to? Make it touch because it's specific. Well, that's the thing. I don't want to make it too annoying to have to cast it. So, I don't know if 60 feet is necessary.
We need to look at other abjuration spells to see what is comparable, like the actual spells that give you resistance.
Well, that would be the spell resistance.
Resistance, which is a cantrip, actually.
Touch. It is a touch spell,
It is a touch
so it
spell.
would make sense. Can I do a quick resistance search for whole words?
It's going to be a lot.
I'm mainly looking in the spell section there. Skip. Yeah. Aura of life, self 30-foot radius, 30-foot radius.
Very confusingly,
Touch.
the resistance cantrip does not give you
Self.
resistance. That's a very confusing name.
No, I think Das has got it on the head. The spells that do anything with resistance usually have some sort of physical contact.
This is true. Yeah.
That's pretty unanimous across the board. I've got to be honest. It's touch. So yeah.
Yep.
Looks like it might have to be a touch.
It is a touch. Okay.
Nice one there, Das. Kelsey's doing her masters and she fucks her spelling. Don't get cruel to yourself. Yeah. There used to be an optional version of English we could choose to learn when I went to secondary school. It was called Anglish. It's English where words from the Romance languages are removed. What? Romance languages?
Romance languages? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what's that about? I'm interested.
What does...
Spanish, French, Italian... so that's foreign languages, not romance languages.
Romance languages.
Spanish? Spanish is not a romantic language. Have you ever heard a Spaniard fucking going off on one? Oh my days, that's not romantic. That's terrifying.
Romance languages are a group of related languages all derived from Vulgar Latin, which includes French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. So, languages that have originated from Latin. Apparently.
I'll give you French, Italian, Portuguese and Romanian, but I'm not giving you Spanish on that one. I heard Mickey Mouse in Spanish. I was terrified. I was like, this is for children.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's because it's originated from the Romans, i.e. Latin.
Roman, right.
Muchos grandes elefantine.
Oh. Seriously, go onto YouTube and just type like Mickey Mouse Spanish. And he just doesn't come up for breath. It's like for like 3 minutes solid. Like I would have died.
We've gone on a tangent.
It's a necessary tangent. The Spanish need to be stopped. They're too powerful. And look at Mexican language. That's a derivative of Spanish. That's another one. It's too powerful.
Right.
So it's a touch spell. So instead of, for example, umbrella, which comes from Italian, you have the word rain shade. Ooh.
Rain shade? But nobody in England calls it a rain shade.
No, we call it a brolly. Chuck us me brolly, love.
Look, I'd be the first person to admit that the English language is in shambles.
It's good though.
Anybody who learns English as a second language, you have the highest praise from me because it is hard for even us to explain.
But you should learn it because it's the best language.
Shut up. It's really not.
Why do all these people speak Spanish? We're in Spain, Dad. They should be speaking English. It's a holiday destination. Perfect British logic.
Terrible.
Perfect British logic. I found this great pub. It's called the Red Lion. What's up?
Oh boy. Getting back to D&D.
Right. So, swallowing resistance. So, we've got down the main mechanical stat bit. So it would just be the description now. So, resistance from any damage caused by the swallow effect, and disadvantage for the creature. Con saves to resist vomiting.
Okay.
Now,
so the way that
it all has to derive from a save, doesn't it? The resistance and everything has to come from if they fail the save.
Well, this is the thing. Is this because this is an abjuration spell? Is this being cast on the person?
On the creature.
This is being cast on the creature who will swallow something.
Oh yeah, the who you the target is listed in the description. So targets a creature,
and just for our own
that could swallow someone.
Yeah, just
someone
for our own,
or
for
something.
Our own personal notes.
Something. So resistance from any damage caused by the swallow effect. Disadvantage for the creature's con saves to resist vomiting.
Instead of a telescope, you have a far looker. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
This is like when everybody learns what the Welsh word for microwave is. Bobbity bing.
Fuck off, it's not. It's not. You're making that up.
It's the first autocomplete. Bobbity bing.
No, it's Microdon.
Oh, is it
It's
not?
just as fantastic, especially since it was described as a small mafia boss. Popty Ping. It's not. Yeah, you've been wound up there.
That's one of those ones that gets passed about.
Popty Ping. Fuck off. Not a word.
Your face.
Not a word.
Your face of like that. No.
Instead of democracy, that's called folks might. Ooh, that sounds.
That's really cool.
That's empowering.
This is useful stuff to know for D&D, actually. Right.
Upon taking damage from.
Right, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna nip to the loo. I'm gonna top up my drink, and I think I might actually get a little bit of a snack because we've not actually had any lunch yet. So I might bring some like crackers and cheese out maybe.
Yeah, sure. How British. Tea, crackers, and cheese. Oh, cracking tea, Gromit.
I said I was just going to top up my water. I'll have a cup of tea in a minute because we've not long had one.
Ooh, hang on. We could make this spell a bit better then.
Oh.
What? Because of the rules of D&D, only the creature that's been swallowed can cause them to vomit. What if part of this spell, because it's a touch spell, is that for the duration while the concentration happens, other creatures that hit them can also trigger it?
That's very helpful, actually. Yeah.
That could be a very useful addition to that spell. That might bump it up to 3rd though, because that's really handy. That's mitigating a lot of the creatures' like damage potential.
You're probably gonna have access to it if you're fighting stuff that can swallow.
Yeah. English was quite useful for when most Germanic languages learn English, as it forces English to become a Germanic language again. Yeah, German's quite a I don't know how to describe. Quite a technical language. I know that a lot of their words is basically they take the two components that make the thing do what it does and they just slam them together, like Krankenwagen, which is an ambulance, which is basically like, I think the derivative of that is basically like healing vehicle or something, or healing wagon.
Yeah, because Wagen is not wagon.
Yeah, that's how the Germans.
Schmetterling.
Hello there, Gandian. Not German, Germanic, German, Dutch, Norwegian, Oh, I didn't realise they were Germanic Norwegians. I thought they would be Scandinavian. But there's not Scandinavian. Sickwagon, yeah, there you go. I would have thought Germanic would have been more of mainland Europe rather than the northern regions. I thought that was Scandinavian derivative. Because you've got a lot of accents in a lot of your words. Try listening to the Icelandic song and nearly had a stroke. In addition, for the duration, creatures outside of damage from outside sources. That makes more sense. Takes the prerequisite damage, so you're not changing any of the you're not making it so that it's easier for them. They still have to deal the amount of damage, but they're in a better position because they're outside. Germanic is the language family. The language called Norse is an offshoot that evolved into the Scandinavian languages of Iceland. Ah, okay. Never realised I'd learned so much from talking shit about D&D. I like it. Yeah, the Germans really did get everywhere, didn't they? I think that kind of covers that then. So the only thing that really needs then, apart from the description, is a name. Is there like a... I was thinking of naming it after something like a pelican or something. I don't know why, but the word embalming really kind of fits with this spell. I call the spell Not Mine as a nod reference to Finding Nemo. The swallow resistance spell. So this one, you target a creature, and any creature or object that creature swallows, they have resistance to the damage of the swallow effect, and they have disadvantage on the con saves to resist vomiting upon taking damage from the swallowed creature. And then I thought, just as an additional thing to make it a little bit more useful, creatures on the outside can trigger the creature to vomit if they deal the prerequisite damage. But I don't know whether to include then the disadvantage on the con saves. Maybe that would be too confusing. So like, if you're on the inside, it's got disadvantage, but if you're on the outside, it doesn't. I feel like you'd have to clarify that, and that might be a little bit too confusing. So maybe just instead, we just delete that and we just say the creature on the inside is safer, and the people on the outside can help. That might be enough, but that might bump it up to something like 3rd level. I feel like that's quite powerful. Where's me little spell list? Hey Besso, welcome to the stream. We're talking crap. Clear all them. Abjuration. Aid, alarm. Let's sort by. Oops. Sort catch up. Shield of Faith. They're all abjuration. Arcane lock. It's 3rd level. Beacon of Hope. Counter spell. Ooh. Is this as powerful as counterspell? Ipecac Punch. Don't know what that word is. Commonly referred to is a drug that was once widely used as an expectorant in low doses and a rapid-acting emetic in high doses. It is obtained from the dried plants. The rapidly induced forceful vomiting. You said, yeah, this one isn't the one that's causing the creature to vomit. This one is the one that's offering protection to those that have been swallowed and making it easier for other people to sort of hurt the creature. So that is a cool word, though. Ipecac Punch. Spell magic, glyph of warding, magic circle. These are some pretty potent ones for 3rd level, so maybe it can stay as just a 2nd level. Things like protection from poison, warding, bond, lesser restoration, arcane lock. Like arcane lock's a prime example of like, it's very useful in its situations, but it's not a mandatory pick. So where's my jacket actually? I've got my. Hang on a second. My God, food platter.
There we go. Very hard to do one of these.
Vaseline for the old lips.
There's Vaseline on the desk.
Where? No. I got my own one. Yeah, I took out the disadvantage on con saves simply because I feel like adding in that other people can trigger the person to vomit up. Very likely then, if you've got a party of 4 people, one's been swallowed, that means that the person inside and the 3 on the outside can all potentially trigger it.
Yeah, that's,
so that's
every
now
turn.
quadrupled the amount of time, so I feel like it was a bit much. So 2nd level spell, I think.
Hello, Besso. Lovely to see you. Hope you're doing all right.
Reps. Where? How is it that you know better English words than I do? Thank you very much. Look. Oh, that is Repsils. That's not a repsil.
What?
Where's the st?
Strepsil.
We call them
Repsil.
strepsils.
Yeah, they're called strepsils in this country. That's weird.
Repsils.
Yeah, that's weird. Huh? Different names for the same thing.
But why? But why?
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think we could necessarily. I don't think we could get away with using strepsils.
I don't think we can name it after a brand.
As much as they would probably be like, ah, yes, a helpful spell, thank you. It's lunchtime. I don't know why, but the word embalming is striking me for this one. I don't know why. You know, when you just get a word in your head and you're like, ooh, but I don't know.
Isn't embalming how they preserve dead bodies?
Yeah, I don't know either. It's not helpful, but it's just my head keeps going back to it and being like, it should be called that.
Try to infringe on as many trademarks as possible.
So Disney's Strepsils Punch. Whole channel just goes down.
The big long chant of trademarks. No, that's a different spell, which I think is, summon lawful infringement.
The problem is because it's nature based, you can't like name it after a god. Because I was thinking, is there a god that is in some way famous for this? You know, like did they get some part of them swallowed or something? Or how about the word haven?
Haven.
Yeah, as part of the spell, because you're creating a kind of haven within the creature.
Well, it's not a haven. It's still not a good place to be. It's just slightly better than it was.
Another word for stomach: breadbasket.
Bread. I mean, if you want to get very literal, then yes, it is a place that bread goes, but only after the fact.
Mint tea transmutation cantrip turns a cup of water into a steaming hot cup of tea. Does nothing else.
It's nice though.
Yeah, you'd learn that spell with every character. Digestive disruption.
Oh, that's a good one.
Why have I just opened this? I've already got a baby though.
More
God.
cheese.
More it is.
More jizz.
There you go. Put that one down. Digestive disruption. That was pretty good. So what next? Welcome back, Dash.
Hello.
We think we've finalised the spell that you gave us inspiration for. This digestive disruption. So, a creature or an object that's been swallowed has resistance to damage caused by the effects of the swallowed, caused by the swallow effect. And in addition, damage from outside sources can trigger them to potentially vomit up the creature, providing they follow the same rules of damage, you know. The end of session yesterday, the players almost managed to get themselves fully TPK'd faster than they possibly could. They tried to ambush the leader of an empire, mistakenly thought it was a demon
Impersonating him, but they ended up trying to kill a CR30 Archangel. Whoopsie!
Been there, done that.
It's a very bad case of confused identity.
Yeah, resistance is a it's a buzzword specifically for halving damage. I mean, I don't know whether you could put that at higher levels you could grant immunity to the creature, or if that's necessary, or I don't know. Because then that would basically just be the party saying, you can't swallow us now, because we'll take no damage from the inside, and then we'll just do more damage to you because we'll be inside you. So yeah, it's a bit. I think that's enough. That's enough. So that's two pretty cool rangery druid spells. What
Obviously,
next,
we've got to finalise the proper wording on it, but we've nailed down what we want them to do.
Yeah.
And we've got the noodly bits of what School of Magic is it and things like that.
Higher level could affect the damage needed for the vomit threshold. Well, it might not have to be...
Didn't you already say that, but you decided not to because you were making it so that people outside could also attack?
Yeah, but I think when you're going up against something like a Tarask, dealing 60 damage in a single turn, it's still not easy. So you could have it where it lowers it by a certain amount, not per level, not so like if you cast at 3rd it does this, 4th this, because there are some spells where it's like if you use a 3rd, 4th or 5th level spell it does this, if you do a 6th or 7th it does this, an 8th or 9th does this. There are only 1 or 2 situations where that's a thing, usually from like duration, but you could have that. Could also increase the DC of the save by 1 for every 2 spell levels above 2nd. I feel like a change in DC is not really something that you see a lot of.
Not in a spell itself.
No. Usually the increase of spell DCs come from
spell
magic
DC
items.
will use your DC.
Because their dice saved them as they missed every shot from the siege weapons. Well, this is where we're going to get into some more advanced game design stuff here. So, the thing to think of is what level creatures are there that you go up against. Like a Remoraz is CR 11. So, what kind of level are you when you go up against something that's CR 11 usually, on average?
You're going to be around 9 or 10 because the CR doesn't quite match up as much at higher levels.
So, when you're around level 9, what spells do you have access to?
4th? 4th level?
4th level spells, is it? You've just got your 5th level spells, but you could be, as you say, talking... Well, Banderhob is another... But that one doesn't vomit, so that's a bad example. Froghemoth. I didn't see the Froghemoth before.
It's not in the monster manual.
No, but I had a look in here and it...
Does it have a different name?
It might do. It's G. There we go, Froghemoth.
Oh, it's part of the bite attack, I think.
Ah.
If it hits you with the bite, you're automatically swallowed.
So that would be something we'd have to put in the specification. It's from bites, swallows. Just so you can't sort of say, oh, it doesn't work on this one, because he's not technically used a swallow attack on you, like he kind of has, just because it's called bite.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say that it. I wouldn't have specified that it was a swallow attack anyway in that regard, because again, technically, anything.
See you later, Haas. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for chilling with us.
Thanks for the education on Scandinavian and Germanic cultures.
Yeah, I wouldn't specifically say like if something does a swallow ability on you, because DMs could homebrew any kind of monster that is gargantuan to just be like, well, it just eats you because it's big enough to do so.
That's fair.
Hope to see you again in the future. We haven't got a regular schedule for this yet. We just sort of felt like doing it. It was rather spur of the moment, really. But we might do it more in the future.
So, Froghemoth. Oh, challenge rating 10.
Oh.
So, yeah, it is something that would be for higher levels.
Wait, can't a purple worm eat you as well?
It's not an attack, but, I mean, technically. For here, level 11. Tarask, obviously, very high level. Giant frog. So there are things that are lower level that could eat you. So it's fine to have it as a second level. I was thinking then, I was like, do we have to just put it as like a 4th level just because it's like no one's going to pick this? Although not a great example.
But it can be
giant toads and giant frogs. And there's nothing that was in that book that came out. So, a bit niche. Because it's mainly for higher level monsters. So do we want to increase the base level for it, but like Das says, give it a thing of like it reduces the, you know, the damage that is needed by an amount equal to whatever.
That's an interesting loophole. a shambling mound doesn't swallow you; it engulfs you because a shambling mound doesn't have a stomach.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wouldn't work on them.
Yeah.
Because that is it's a plant.
It's a plant.
It doesn't. Yeah. So it's not specifically designed for that. It's specifically for something that has eaten you. You know, like as you say, like with the water elemental, it engulfs you in water, but it's not eating you. You're just a part of its form.
You'd have to put in a little end sentence at the end of the spell. That is, this spell does not affect creatures that do not have stomachs. In the same way of like, you know, you say that there are certain things that don't affect undead because they don't have organs. You know. Yeah,
so we could just put in this doesn't affect plants, undead, constructs, elementals.
Yeah, because there are loads of spells that say this thing does not affect undead or constructs, so we'd have to put the little caveat in that it wouldn't affect that, because those things do not typically have a stomach.
So, getting back to them, if we make this a 4th level spell, because we say that you don't need it on earlier levels. It's just not necessary. Even things like a giant frog and a giant toad, it's going to die too quick to a 1st level character. That's really a problem.
Yeah.
So you're only going to need to take it at about 4th level. So how do we beef this up so that it's worth it? Because that on its own is
not worth it.
It's like, okay, it's cool, but I would much rather use my 4th level spell to do something else.
Well, currently it doesn't have any damage into it.
No. Could we make it a thing of like, also, the creature must, if the creature swallowed something, at the start of each of its turns it must also naturally just make a save, otherwise it vomits something up. Or at the end of its turn.
Could be, because it's a concentration, so it's a continual effect of like every turn it tries to vomit, and if it has nothing to vomit it just takes more damage.
That could make it...
You're just continually keeping it retching.
Yeah.
Again,
so basically you're doubling the number of, you know, like every turn it will have to vomit, it will have to make a save, otherwise it vomits anyway, but then that can also be triggered by other creatures hitting it.
Again, we can give it the poison condition, because that is kind of what the poison condition is meant to simulate, the fact that you are feeling unwell and you're kind of like it's kind of hard to attack when you're doing that all the time.
That could work.
That's what the poison condition is meant to simulate.
I would give it the rider text of not affecting creatures with stomachs, as there may be cases where a homebrew undead is used and has the ability to swallow with a without stomachs, sorry.
It's true.
Not affecting creatures without stomachs. Yeah.
Okay, rather than a specific monster category. Fair enough.
And I suppose, now thinking about it, don't genies count as elementals?
Yeah, that's true. And things like phoenixes.
Yeah.
They have stomachs, so...
Even though they are still organic, so yeah.
Cannot affect creatures.
Still waiting for the morning coffee to kick in.
Do not...
Morning? It's 3 in the afternoon, nearly.
Shush up.
That could be like Tasha's and incapacitated. Don't know if well, for a 4th level spell to apply incapacitated.
It's 4th level. What are we competing with at 4th level? Compulsion, confusion, dimension door, freedom of movement, locate creature, illusionary terrain, blight.
Blight's nasty.
Yeah. Dominate beast. Confusion is a comparable one.
An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions.
This is the same level as banishment. It's a 4th level spell. It's the same level as banishment. Arcane Eye, Banishment, Blight, Confusion, Fabricate, Flame Shield, Greater Invisibility, Hallucinatory Terrain, Eomon's Secret Chest, Ice Storm, Mordekainen's Private Sanctum, Otiluk's Resilient Sphere, Phantasmal Killer, Polymorph, Stone Shape, Stone Skin, Wall of Fire. Those are the kind of spells that we're competing with at this level. So yeah, we kind of want to beef it a little bit. What's Confusion?
Okay. Well, how about this? With it being concentration, another thing you said is that a swallowed creature typically takes damage automatically, which triggers the con save to maintain the concentration. That's another point. If you're on the inside, that's nothing. Okay. How about this then? When you cast it on the creature, it has to. Whenever it swallows something, it becomes incapacitated. So it can't take actions or reactions until it has thrown the creature back up.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, because, I mean, the spell, we've given the name Digestive Disruption, so that implies that the creature's stomach itself is now not happy.
Yeah.
And wants to get rid of the stuff that is in it.
But then also, at the end of each of its turns, or the start, I don't know, whichever would be better, but at each turn, it has to make a save to see if it holds the creature. Because it's still doing damage to the creature while it's inside, but you've basically made it so that it's in so much pain that it can't fight properly when it swallowed someone. So you've made that attack be pretty useless until it makes the save and gets rid of it.
Yeah. Which is pretty strong.
It's very niche, but it does the job
it's a
for
game,
that specific thing.
It's a game changer, which, you know, that's how a lot of spells can be. It's like, if you have the one specific spell for this one specific encounter, then you could be good, but that is the nature of D&D.
So that might work. So, targets a creature that could swallow someone or something. Resistance from any damage caused by the swallow effect. At the start of each of the creature's turns, it must succeed a con save if it has swallowed something. On a fail, it vomits it up. So we can get rid of the outside damage trigger because that's not really going to be needed. Cannot affect creatures that do not possess a stomach, so the creature becomes incapacitated when it has swallowed a creature or object and remains incapacitated until it succeeds its saving throw against this spell
On subsequent turns.
or vomits up what it swallowed. How does that sound? So you cast a spell on the creature and nothing happens immediately because it's not done anything, but it is now under the effect that any creature that it swallows or any item that it swallows is going to take half damage because it has resistance to it. When it does swallow something, it will become incapacitated, so it can't take actions or reactions, but it can still move. At the start of each of its turns, it will need to make a con saving throw to see if it vomits up what it's got, but then at the end of each of its turns, it will also make the save against this spell. To see if it will then have to do it next turn. Does that make sense?
I think so. I still feel that maybe for a 4th level spell we could put in a little bit of damage. Maybe for if it does vomit it up, does the spell end?
No, this would just be the concentration that lasts on it. This is just a continuous thing, but you got to remember that if we put damage on this as well, any creature then that you go up against that has a swallow ability, the swallow ability will be part of its CR, and that's what will do some of its damage, removing somebody from the fight outside and dealing damage to them inside. So you're already basically attacking one of their actions. So I feel like giving it damage as well might be a little too powerful then, because then essentially it's like, well, why would I take a damaging spell when I can take this one and then I can target any creature I want and just hurt it regardless. So I don't feel like it needs damage.
Fair enough, that's
because
fair.
being incapacitated is a bitch.
True.
You can't do actions or reactions. That's your turns over with, basically. So it's then the creature's choice. Do you want to swallow something and deal a bit of damage to it on the inside because it's going to have resistance to it, or do you want to not do that? Or do you want to swallow the creature that's cast it on you in the hopes of getting them to fail the saving throw and then the fight goes back to normal?
Yeah.
So I think that fits. Hello there.
Hello.
We're homebrewing some spells, as you can see on blue screen at the moment. We've done one of them, and we're just finishing off the second one.
Yeah, well, we haven't technically finished the third one because we've not done the proper wording, but we've nailed down what it does. We just.
Third one.
I'm having a bad day.
You can't talk.
I'm having a bad day. Leave me alone.
Yeah, you finish that up. I don't want too much cheese. You like cheese a lot more than I do.
I do.
Right, so I know you've just arrived, but I'm just going to be right back. I need the loo.
Mm-hmm.
I've drunk half my water bottle already.
Good.
Not good. Need to pee.
You must stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
Thank you. Right. How can we word this better? I'm trying to think about the wording on some of these, since we haven't quite done the wording, so. Let's see. Targets a creature that could swallow someone or something. Resistant for any damage caused by swallowing, but the creature becomes incapacitated when it has swallowed a creature or an object, and remains incapacitated until it succeeds the saving throw against the spell, or vomits up what it has swallowed. At the start of each of the creature's turns, it must succeed on a con save. If it has swallowed something, on a fail, it vomits it up. Okay. Das, I think at this point Tala identifies as a gastric problem. That's true. So to rewind back to the start of the stream, I have a D&D character who on several occasions has been eaten, which is Tala, who we are talking about. She is not a spellcaster, so this is not for her, but I was DMing a game on Friday, and it happened again in that the monster that I was running devoured and swallowed one of my player characters, and I was just thinking about the rules that the game has for when characters are swallowed. The rules are generally that the swallowed character is restrained and has full cover, and only the swallowed character can do damage to make themselves be vomited up, so it's not a great situation to be in. And the situation that happened with me on Friday is that the person who got swallowed fell unconscious, and I thought, oh god, that is an easy way to get killed, because if you have full cover, a lot of healing spells can't hit you, and the teammates outside can't help you to get you out. They basically have to kill the creature before you die. So it's pretty bad. So we then had the thought of, what spells come into existence generally to target a problem, which is why you have things like heat metal and Lemon's Tiny Hut or whatever. People have problems and they make spells to try and fix them. So we thought, well, if this is a problem that rangers and druids come across, they would make a spell to try and combat it, a spell to try and stop people getting swallowed by things. So we have come up with Ignoble Indigestion, thank you Das for the name, which is literally just the spell which makes you vomit. And then we have Digestive Disruption, which is the spell which is a higher level, and it will almost kind of prevent people getting harmed by the swallow, so as soon as something gets swallowed by a creature, it has to vomit it back up, so that lasts longer. Is the general summary of what we've gone on here. Creature must succeed a Constitution saving throw. On a failure, it becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature or object and remains incapacitated until it succeeds on the saving throw at the start of its turn, or uses its action to expel the creature or object. That is fantastic. I love that.
That's pretty fucking spot on.
Yeah, are we okay to use that? Because that is pretty stellar. Thank you very much. Let's bring that over.
So does it tick every box? So paste it in. Let's have a look. So we need the who you can target to go at the start of that.
So you target a creature within
touch.
Yes. Well, you still target.
I think for touch spells they usually do say that you touch them though. Yeah, look. You touch a creature that has blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Blah. So
yeah, this is where you add in a little bit of flavour. So it's like you touch a creature, and
you touch a creature that that has the ability to swallow.
Technically, any creature has the ability to swallow. It's more the flavour of like you touch a creature, causing its digestive tract to become unsettled. Is the kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. To become unsettled for the duration.
For the duration.
The creature must succeed a Constitution saving throw. On a failure, it becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature or object and remains incapacitated until it succeeds on the saving throw at the start of its turn or uses its action to expel the creature or object. Okay, so then we now need to put in that at the end of each of its turns, it can make a save against this spell.
Yeah, so new paragraph, I think, is when it comes to spell descriptions. So a new paragraph. So we've got that bit.
Just trying to scan through for the word end. A creature binded by this spell makes another Constitution saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, it is no longer blinded. So I suppose that would be the wording that we could go with for that one. So
say again.
So a creature. A creature affected by this spell.
Yeah.
I suppose is the most generic way. A creature affected by this spell makes another Constitution saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, the spell ends.
Is it comma or full stop?
Full stop. On a successful save.
On a successful save, the spell ends. This spell has no effect on creatures.
So if it swallowed somebody, it saves at the start of the turn, so it can throw them up, and then it will still have its turn. So you're not taking too much away from it. But then at the end of the turn, it will make a save to see if it's still under the effect.
Yeah.
I'll probably make the save at the start of the turn, end the effect if it saves. Do you reckon? I feel like most things are usually that it's at the end of your turn you're forced to make a saving throw to end the effect of a spell, because otherwise, if someone casts it on the creature and then it comes to the creature's turn and then they make the save straight away and then it's ended, so it's like I failed the saving throw and then I saved it immediately after, and so I don't get to, it doesn't do anything. That's, usually that's the point of the initial saving throw, is that you at least get one turn out of it, isn't it? Like if you charmed a creature and it fails the saving throw, it's charmed for its first turn, and then at the end of the turn it makes the save to end the charm effect. Otherwise it would make it at the start, and then it's like, well, it then technically has to fail 2 saving throws in order to be charmed. It's a bit much. Well, no, close that, don't need that. Becomes incapacitated whenever until it succeeds on the saving throw at the start of its turn or uses its action to expel the creature or object. Instead of saying it uses an action to expel the creature, would it be better to word it that it can choose to fail the saving throw at the start of its turn to vomit up the creature,
Yeah.
because otherwise it could succeed it, wanted to have failed it, and now it has to use its action to get rid of it, when it would have been better for it to fail. Usually D&D isn't designed where it's like, it's better if you failed this.
Yeah. I guess the whole concept of the spell, and again it's a 4th level spell, the whole point of it, again the name, is you have disrupted this creature's stomach. So that's a very involuntary thing. You know, if you have a really good discipline or you've practiced, you could probably, like, you know, convince yourself not to throw up when you feel sick, but most people, being sick is an involuntary action. You just sort of, it just happens. You try your best not to, but it just kind of happens.
So, on a failure, it becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature or object and remains incapacitated until it succeeds on the saving throw at the start of its turn. See, that's the bit we need to get rid of then for this at the start of its turn. Basically, it becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature or object. And remains incapacitated whilst...
Yeah, because it's concentration, it keeps making it save against the spell.
And remains incapacitated for the duration, basically, is what that is. Well no, because it remains incapacitated whilst it has a creature or object swallowed. That's what that is. It remains incapacitated while it has a creature or object swallowed. And then a creature affected by this spell makes a con save at the end of each of its turns. Oops. Oh, fuck that. On a successful save, the spell ends. So that's the only caveat we need because if it's incapacitated, it can't use an action.
Oh yeah. So it can't use an action
so
to
we
split
need to give
things
it an overriding ability in here that says, like, you know, it's under the effect of this, so if it wants to, it can choose to vomit up the creature so that it gets its actions back. But that would be the only thing it could do on its turn. That would be its overriding rule, which I think it does list in, like, the DMG of, like, you know, if there's two rules that counteract one another, the specific overwrites the generic, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
That's the way that they get around wording things. So
yeah, it cannot take actions or reactions. So I was wondering, like, oh, can we make it a reaction? But no, they can't take reactions either.
So you touch a creature, causing its digestive tract to become unsettled for the duration, which is a minute concentration. The creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. On a failure, it becomes incapacitated whenever... so this is something that would happen upon the initial casting. So, the creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. On a failure, it becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature or object and remains incapacitated while it has a creature or object swallowed.
Yeah.
It can choose to vomit up any creatures or objects it has swallowed. How do you... what's the wording for, like, giving them essentially an override to an action? Because there are some things out there where it's like, you know, you are under this condition, but you can do this instead. But I can't think of an example of a spell that does that.
Yeah, I can't think of an example either.
I know that there are some that exist because they give you kind of specific ones. The creature has disadvantage on the save at the end of its turns if it expelled a creature or object that turn. We would need to make a save if it's already... Oh, you mean to save from the spell rather than the... Well, that's the only thing that we need to save from. We don't need to save from the condition because it's all the same thing now. We were working with it as if it was split, like you make a save at the start and then one at the end, but it's just a save against the spell. We don't need to double it. Handbook.
Yeah, I'm I'm still. I can't. I'm trying to see if anything sort of springs to mind. You're right. I feel like there are things where it's like, oh, if someone just allows the thing to happen, it can happen. But I can't think of like what it is.
I'm trying to look at some of the conditions. Stunned, poisoned, restrained. Might have to type in some of these as buzzwords. Well, let's have a look for incapacitated.
I thought it might be Zone of Truth, but no, it's not. Zone of Truth doesn't really say anything about, like, you know, willingly failing. It just says, you know, if you succeed, the caster knows that you've succeeded. Like a monster ability or something.
Go to the old Google. Might have to come back to this one because we're spending a lot of time on this one. We know what we want it to achieve.
We just can't find the example on how we want it to word it. Target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or become poisoned. While poisoned in this way, the target becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature. On its turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. At the end of each of its turns, it can repeat the Constitution saving throw, ending the effect on a success. The save is made with disadvantage if the target has currently swallowed a creature.
What does the poison condition do again?
Disadvantage on attacks and ability checks, I think.
That might be enough, actually. Yeah, maybe incapacitated is a bit too much of a crux.
It's a 4th level spell.
It is a 4th level spell.
We said the 2nd level spell was going to give it poisoned.
Unless we change it so that we give it the poisoned effect, but the poison will last for a minute and there's no save if it swallows a creature. So the idea being, if it does use its swallow ability, it can do so, but even when it gets rid of the creature, it's poisoned for a minute.
Yeah, that's what this wording is saying. It's if it fails the throw, it's just poisoned regardless. It will be poisoned. The swallowing thing is then like the secondary effect.
Oh, right. While poisoning this way, the target becomes incapacitated when it swallows the creature. On its turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. Doesn't say as an action, so yeah, that could work. On its turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. At the end of each of its turns, it can repeat. So I'd put that as, at the start of its turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. Because that you don't imply an action.
Yeah,
it just
action
chooses to.
Yeah,
that covers it, because then you give them the poison condition when you cast the spell, so there's something that happens immediately. You've upset the digestive system, and then whenever they swallow someone, it gets worse.
Yeah.
But it remains worse only while they've swallowed something, so it's the deterrent for the creature. Yeah, that works.
Which is the point.
That works.
Okay, copy that over, I guess.
Doing some tweaking. And then I think after this one, I want to move away from throwing up.
Fair.
Because I feel like we've covered that excessively now.
Paste without formatting.
There we go.
There we go.
Right, so you touch a creature causing its digestive tract to blah 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 blah
Blah blah blah blah blah blah blah. Flavor text.
The target must succeed a Constitution saving throw or become poisoned. Do you put for the duration there? Is that necessary?
I don't think so. I think that's something that you put at the end, where it's like the effects end on a save. Maybe actually, maybe you are meant to put for the duration.
Don't think you do actually.
Do you not?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't look like it's touch creature. That creature must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or become cursed for the duration of the spell.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I suppose it kind of does. So we can add that in. Become poison for the duration of the spell. While poisoned in this way, the target becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature. On it, why have you flagged up its? That's the correct use of its, Google. On its turn, so that one needs to be at the start. Oh, I'm fucking it up, Blue. There we go. At the start of the creature's turn. At the start of the creature's turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. At the end of each of its turns, it can repeat the Constitution saving throw, ending the effect on a success. This save is made with disadvantage if the target has currently swallowed a creature. Okay, so if you cast it on them at the start and you poison them,
Yeah.
and they're not, nothing's really happened to them because they're poisoned, but they're not incapacitated. If they don't swallow a creature on that turn and it gets to the end of their turn, they can make a save as normal. If they do swallow somebody though, it's harder for them to get rid of it because now they've got other problems going on. So it's a save when they haven't swallowed someone as opposed to a save when they have swallowed.
Okay.
So yeah, that fits. And there's nothing else that we need on that. Creature affected by this spell. Blah, blah, blah.
Cool. Being so generous. Thank you very much.
Hey. Blue, I have now seen the most wholesome image in all of Final Fantasy XIV. Is your portrait up on the wall?
Oh, he's so cute. He's being really sweet because I'm having a bad day.
You're having a bad day because I keep being dumb.
I can't help being stupid.
I have the dumb.
So in our original outline, we were going to give anything that got swallowed resistance to the damage. Are we not going to do that anymore?
Oh yeah.
We totally like didn't include that.
Yeah, no, we can add that in.
It's just a new paragraph probably. Any creature that is swallowed. Yeah.
There you go, there's that. In addition, any creature that is swallowed has resistance to all damage caused by the effects. Sorry, the effects of being swallowed. Objects that are swallowed are immune to all damage caused by the effects of being swallowed. So the idea behind that is that if there's an important object in the fight, and you're like, this thing might just try and eat it and destroy it.
It won't.
Objects will be fine. Organic matter won't. It's halved, shall we say?
Yeah.
How does that sound? Just to give it a little bit of extra,
Yeah,
bit of flair.
yeah. As we keep saying, it's a level 4 spell, so it needs to be decent. Yeah.
So it's good for creatures that are swallowed. It's great for objects that are swallowed, and it gives the creature a bad time if the thing it's going to do is try and eat us.
Okay, so let's from the top. Digestive Disruption, a 4th level abjuration, casting time of an action, range touch, verbal, semantic, and material, sprig of mint, concentration up to a minute. You touch a creature, causing its digestive tract to become unsettled for the duration. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or become poisoned for the duration of the spell. While poisoned in this way, the target becomes incapacitated whenever it swallows a creature. At the start of the creature's turn, it may choose to expel the creature it has swallowed. At the end of each of its turns, it can repeat the Constitution saving throw, ending the effect on a success. This save is made with disadvantage if the target has currently swallowed a creature.
Or object.
In addition, any creature that is swallowed has resistance to all damage caused by the effects of being swallowed. Objects that are swallowed are immune to all damage caused by the effects of being swallowed. This spell has no effect on creatures that do not possess a stomach.
I think that's nailed it. Now we need to make the reverse of this spell and call it Mordecaiden's Instant Tums.
Tums are great. They're exactly what you need. Okay. Well, we haven't technically done the wording on the first one, but you say you want to move away from vomiting.
We know the gist of that one, and that one's not going to be too complicated. We could basically just copy and paste heat metal and just change,
We can pinch some of the wording that we've got from this for this one.
I don't want to get bogged down by it. The idea was mainly just to get the idea across. So does this sound like a spell that could exist in that world? Mm-hmm. Yes. Would it be useful? Yes. And is it balanced? Which I feel like
balanced,
it is, without obviously testing it. I feel like that's a choice that a ranger or a druid could make, because 4th level spells for a ranger would be very high. That's one of the high level spells, but that would be a get out of jail free card essentially. We're going to go up against like a Remoraz, busting out my 4th level spell. This one could save the fight.
That's what happened on Friday.
Which is what the ranger's job is against monsters. Why do we keep turning to you? Because you are the monster man.
Cool. Yeah, we've done 2 new spells today. So new spells. So.
I think you guys are misunderstanding. Spells are not puns. The pun wizard just comes out onto the battlefield. Oh no, he's going to start talking again.
That's just a bard. A pun wizard is a bard.
I'm a bard. Pun wizard.
A pun wizard. Silence, pun wizard.
Oh boy. Okay, so what are we moving on to next?
Well, we've got plenty of things to pick from.
Do you want to do more spells, or do you want to do more things?
I can't. Those 2 spells were the ones that we thought of yesterday, which what made us do this. Currently, off the top of my head, I can't think of other spells that I want to make, unless you've thought of some spells that you think would be cool.
I did have one Wondrance, but I don't know if the spell already exists in another form. Another druidy sort of nature one.
Mm.
The idea being that druids obviously want to look after their land. Well, one of the threats to a druid is obviously dragons and flying creatures that can just fly into their territory, and they don't really have any defense against it. So I was thinking some sort of spell that would allow them to use the clouds to like bind flying creatures.
Interesting. Earthbind is a spell that exists, but you have to like specifically target a creature. It's not like a ward that you can put down. Is Earthbind in this book? I can't remember.
Some sort of spell that would target, like the ones where you can say you can designate the type of creatures when you cast the spell, and it's usually like dragons, fiends, celestials, fae, that kind of stuff. I was wondering, would that be, that to me seems like quite a story-driven spell of essentially having the clouds in the sky being a sentry for the forest beneath or the desert or something, and when it flies into range, the clouds will bind it on a fail and just carry it away with like the weather conditions, so it's like it's bound for the duration. It just takes it.
I can't remember which book Earthbind was from. Apparently,
Earthbind is that book pulls to the ground. So it's Fusro Dar.
Earthbind is a 2nd level spell. It's got a range of 300 feet, so obviously very far away because flying stuff. You choose a creature you see within range. Yellow strips of magical energy loop around the creature. The target must succeed a strength saving throw, or its flying speed is reduced to 0 for the spell's duration. An airborne creature affected by this safely descends at 60 feet per round until it has reached the ground. So it's quite a low level, but it is a targeting thing. It's not a ward. You want to create essentially a warding version of this.
Yeah, something that would persist over an area. So similar to like Nistor's magic aura or something. It's like you can cast it and it lasts for like, I don't know, a day, but you can keep casting it and eventually it can become like
you
a
literally want to have a
effect.
spell which is no fly zone.
Yeah, essentially. That was all I was, I thought that's something a druid might go for. This place would be terrible if a green dragon was to fly in it and take over. So I've put a spell up to say, no, stop that. Go away. D&D, no, a druid no fly zone.
A Drid!
Drid.
I'm playing a Drid!
Drid no fly zone.
Drid to Erden!
Good night, everybody. Is that like the D&D equivalent of Spooderman? Oh, it's Drid's Durden.
We have Dritzed at home. Dritzed at home. Drid.
Drid.
Drid to Erden.
Okay. So do we want to flesh this one out, or do you want to go for another thing?
I'm okay with this because I'm drawing a blank at the moment now that we've done the two ones that were like on the forefront.
No, I mean like, did you want to jump to a different homebrew thing to sort of show off what we've been going over? Is there anything that's
the other things that we have listed here is we have the animalistic traits, which is a variety of things that probably need to be broken down because currently that's just a bunch of stuff that's been thrown into one document. Gauntlet mode is its own kettle of fish. Again, we've got homebrew classes, which I don't know if we had anything. We got homebrew druid, which is basically revised druid, so I don't know why it's under. Yeah, we got an improved ranger that you wanted to do.
That was from ages ago.
From a very long time ago. You wanted to revise the sorcerer, so we've got a revised druid, a revised sorcerer, a revised ranger. We've got the new fighting style, which was something that we talked about earlier, where we wanted melee combatants to be able to do more things.
Yes.
Traveller character creation, which is a big thing.
Yeah. For anyone who's not done the traveller character creation system, that is worth trying once. It's fun.
Got additional weapon and arm proficiencies, which kind of ties into your new fighting style, and weapon durability homebrew.
Yeah, that was a one-off based on Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
With sharpness.
So we've got quite a few things to pick from, basically.
Which one takes your fancy?
If I'm honest, probably the animalistic traits, which is unsurprising for me.
So
really.
for like werewolves and stuff.
Yeah. So currently we've got them all put in one document. I think it's probably better to break these down into separate things because we've got wild shape traits, mounted combat shapes, and lycanthropy, along with other stuff. So we thought about making basically our own lycanthropy rules. So I think that's probably better to just stick in its own documents and just call it like alternate lycanthropy rules.
Yeah, sure. We're looking more at getting our own ideas. We want to start this up as being, I don't know, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whenever we feel like it, but just coming up with our own homebrew stuff to put it on paper, because we have a lot of ideas that we talk about whenever we're driving places or just sat around, discussing D&D and the things we like, the things we don't like, and just putting pen to paper essentially.
Yeah, actually getting it written down.
Yeah.
For like the first time ever. Formats. Not format.
Homebrew ideas, animalistic.
I'm pretty sure that's not how you spell lineage, but apparently I've spelt it so wrong that even Google doesn't fucking know what I'm trying to say.
It's spelled line ages. So you want to work on the lycanthropy rules.
So, what did we write on here?
Do you want to copy all of that over?
Yeah, we only wrote a couple of bullet points.
Okay, so this is really going to be your kind of territory because you absolutely love doing werewolf.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of stuff in here that I've forgotten what they were.
That was for the shape changer druid stuff that we were looking at.
I think we need to reorganise the Google Drive a little bit.
Yeah,
rather because animalistic traits is like confusing to me of like what the heck is this folder? And as I said, like Homebrew Clash, you've put Druid, so it's like, well, that should just be called Revised Druid.
I'll have a do
we need
that
to
off camera.
we need to tidy our folders. Right, I'm gonna close spells. Just close that. Close that. Okay.
Alright. So
the first thing that we talked about that could be fun when we were doing this was we thought that it would be interesting for both vampire and lichens to have lineages, which is that you essentially have a bloodline that possesses certain traits.
yes, this was something that I'd had an idea for my homebrew world, and after listening to like the Discworld and the constant mention for Angua, which is a werewolf character in those books, they always refer to her. Anytime anyone encounters this character, they always say that you need to be careful of her because she's a bimorphic, which within that world has its own terminology. It means that of all the werewolves that there are, she is somebody that can change between two forms, bimorphic. So she has a human form and then she has a wolf form. So she doesn't have what many people would sort of typically think of as a werewolf form of like 6 foot, 7 foot tall, wolf features, hairy all over, but still stands bipedal. She doesn't have that form. She switches between human and wolf.
And in one of the books, it goes on. Angua shares with Carrot the fact that she has several brothers and sisters, but she has her brother Wolfgang, who is also a bimorphic. He can switch between the two, but she does have a sibling who is a werewolf technically, but is not bimorphic. They are constantly in wolf form, but they are a werewolf, so they are intelligent, and I think they can technically speak. And she goes on to say that they technically have a happy life being one of the country's top sheepdogs, because obviously they have the intelligence of a human, but they're a dog, so they're able to do stuff. And she then also has, I think that was a brother, and she also has a sister who unfortunately was, I think, killed by Wolfgang, who was, but genetically was a werewolf, but was only a human form.
Yeah. She didn't have that switch to change.
Yeah, she wasn't able to switch, but she was a werewolf, and it was like, oh, if she had had children, they would have carried the werewolf gene, and her children may have been bimorphic.
So by that logic, I also then wanted to extrapolate on that. So to give more forms to lycanthropes, so that there's more things that they can do.
Yes.
But B, the other inspiration that I got from that was when I was looking over vampires, and I was looking up how to, what are their weaknesses, not just in terms of D&D, but what are their weaknesses in general. And you go through things where it's like people say, oh, it's silver, because they obviously can't see their reflection, so silver is a main thing, and a stake to the heart and that kind of stuff. But then you look at D&D, and any vampires that descend from Gulthias, who's a very famous vampire in that and is in the Sunless Citadel, he's mentioned in that, the Gulthias tree, he was killed by being staked in the heart, and his blood spawned the first twig blights and stuff.
Yes.
So he essentially is the creator of the blights, inadvertently. He didn't mean to, but
from dying,
he created the blights. So I thought it would be interesting if you take your lineage all the way back to, say, Dracula. Dracula might have the stereotypical, weak to silver, stake to the heart, blah blah blah. But then other vampires that have then turned against Dracula, and they manage to drain him of his blood, and that's how you free yourself from being a vampire. That seems to be a pretty common thing. Of, if you manage to drain the blood of the vampire that infected you, you essentially get kind of freedom from it. You're still a vampire, but you're not subvert to them. So I thought that would give them their own set of unique weaknesses.
So some of the vampire stuff came from our inspiration of obviously watching the Netflix Castlevania series, because obviously there's a variety of vampires in there, and they do all have different abilities because they're all from different places. So there was like the Japanese vampire, and obviously there's Dracula,
Yeah.
who is just the the strongest one. He can basically do anything, and then there's his son Alucard, who can shapeshift into a wolf and things
wolf
like that.
And mist and bats.
Yeah,
You can do all of those.
They can all do different things. So we want to do sort of both together. Of like both vampires and werewolves can have these lineages which give them different abilities, which means that when it helps when players have like a certain vision of how they want either their werewolf or their vampire to be, and D&D's base rules don't necessarily account for that, because the base rules currently is if you get bitten by a lycanthrope and you fail the save and you become a lycan, you become evil and you essentially just want to kill things. But it's like, well, not everybody wants that. Some people, I am a prime example, like being able to play a cool werewolf character to do cool werewolf stuff, but you still don't necessarily want to be a bad person.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of idea of it. Is anytime you see werewolves fantasized about in books and stuff, it's always that the werewolf side of them is evil, but they themselves are not evil, and they have to struggle with this, essentially this disease, this curse, as a crux.
Yeah.
So it's how do they go through their normal life while still trying to maintain their humanity?
Yeah, but
and
again, to use Angua as an example, she does have to deal with that. Like, there are some things that she can't help being a werewolf, but even when she's a werewolf, it's not like she's a blood crazy monster. She can just walk through the street. She isn't just going to start attacking people. Like, she still has control.
She has cravings, essentially.
Yeah, she has cravings. When she's not going to start attacking people, but she does start drooling when she walks past a meat stand. It's like, oh god, it smells so good. Even though Angua herself wants to be a vegetarian. But it's the same thing.
Yeah, like as Gandian says, he likes the traditional weakness of running water in addition to not being able to enter a building unless invited.
Yeah.
And I think those are cool as well, but imagine if, part of the problem was the current vampire that we're dealing with is descended from a bloodline where they are allowed to enter buildings for whatever reason, and that's what makes this particular vampire so terrifying.
Yeah.
But they might have different weaknesses elsewhere. Maybe they're not as powerful as like the Dracula bloodline, where it's like, they have resistance to all these kind of damages, of maybe they are just like dangerous people almost, or maybe they can't fly, or they can't change shape. They're not deceptive, they're just more like savage vampires.
Yeah, like Vampire Spawn or something.
Yeah, but that's what makes that bloodline different.
Yeah. It then opens up the opportunity of, like, when you add in a vampire or a werewolf, it's not just a, cool, well, we got to go kill this now. It becomes more of an investigation of, like, you got to learn what the bloodline is, you've got to investigate what that bloodline can do, what they can't do, you've got to learn what their weakness is. It basically gives the DM more of an actual plot than just a, go kill the vampire, guys.
Yeah. And that gives the like vampire hunters and werewolf hunters, they're more specific. It's like, why do you hire a guy? Don't you just need like a big strong fighter? Like, can't they do it? It's like, well, no, because these are people who've actually researched them and they know the tells. Am I taking Wolfbane with me to go and kill this werewolf because it will kill them?
Yeah.
Or is that just going to be like throwing oregano at them because it's not a weakness of theirs?
Yeah.
Am I loading silver bullets or am I loading quicksilver bullets?
There's a difference.
Yeah. Or am I loading? Is it just fire that they're weak to? What is the weakness of this werewolf? And the good thing about werewolves as well is they have that other layer of like, what can they change into? Is it like they have a single form, like you said, for if they just stay human or they just stay in their animal form? Do they have a bimorphic form? Do they have a trimorphic where they can switch into a hybrid?
Yeah.
And a hybrid would be incredibly dangerous.
That's technically what base werewolves are. They've got humanoid, wolf, and hybrid.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't get used very often. But here in the box, where it's like players as characters, it's like they gain the lycan's speed in non-humanoid form. They gain the immunities, the traits. Actions don't involve Christian, they become proficient with the natural attacks. Yada 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 yada. If the character embraces the curse, his or her alignment becomes the one defined by the lycanthrope.
No, we're not having werepires.
No.
What if I could be a vampire and a werewolf?
No.
What if I could have my cake and eat it too?
No.
I just want all the edge.
It's just the line here of, if the character embraces the curse, his or her alignment becomes the one defined by the lycanthrope. You can have that, but I hate that is just the catch-all of, do you want to be a werewolf? Yes, you have to be evil.
Yeah.
You get no say in the matter.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine if you want to have that, but you should have the option.
Yeah, 5th edition has opened everything up to, like they've taken things away from like races being limited to classes and stuff.
Yeah, it's like dwarves can be spellcasters. They're now saying, drow don't have to be evil. They can be good guys now. So I'm like, okay, well if drow can be good guys, then Werewolves can be good guys.
And we've seen more of good werewolves and vampires in popular media than we have of drow,
Yeah.
because drow is kind of a D&D thing,
Yeah.
you know. So you don't really see a lot of that.
Yeah. It was that the DM is free to decide that a change in alignment places the character under DM's control. So technically, you could also just lose your character of like, cool, you're a werewolf now. Mine.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I gotta make a new character now?
Yeah.
I thought I would get to play as a pretty cool werewolf.
Yeah, and have to deal with, you know, the problems that
Yeah.
that entails, but
Yeah.
gaining some
That's
benefits.
the thing,
so-
you know, everybody knows that I'm somebody who really likes werewolves, shock and horror. Obviously, I like all the benefits that you get from being a werewolf, but I do also like the negative effects. I do like having to deal with the fact of, like, you know, you're now hunted by people, you can't go into cities and stuff. That is part of the fun of having to deal with the adverse effects, which is something that we will add into the lineages of, like, these are all the good things that you get, but you also get all of these bad things, and you have to kind of decide what it is that you want. Is it worth it for you personally? Because some people will probably just min-max it and be like, yeah, sure, I'll take everything. Exactly. Silver is the common one.
Yeah, that was the main one that got me started off in it, was that there was no definitive thing of like, vampires are weak to silver, because it says they were speculated to be weak to silver, but the thought was that they may also be weak to mercury, because mercury was referred to in the day as quicksilver. So I'm like, okay, so is it silver or quicksilver? Is it both? Is it neither? I'm not sure now. And I thought, well, why not have the answer to that be yes to everything?
Yeah, the whole
some are weak to silver, some are weak to
the whole
both.
reason that vampires don't have reflections is because back in the day, mirrors were made from silver.
But in D&D, there are magical mirrors. Magical mirrors wouldn't need anything, realistically, in order to function. They wouldn't have to have silver. They would work
so
via
that's
magic.
another thing
So-
you can add in of, oh, my vampire lineage has a reflection. That bit doesn't bother me.
But that would be something that a vampire hunter would have to take into consideration. Like, you know, I have seen that they reflect in their own castle, but are the mirrors in their own castle magical? I don't know.
Yeah.
If they are magical, doesn't prove anything. If they're not, then that narrows down what lineage I'm having to deal with. That could be something that's very important. So, yeah, that was where the thought process came from. Basically giving diversity.
Yeah.
So it's not just black and white of you are a vampire, you aren't, you are a werewolf, you aren't.
Yeah. To go on what you said there, I think one general thought that we had for lineages was we could do exactly that. We could have a list of benefits and disadvantages, and you could essentially pick and choose and mix and match. So, like, oh, for every advantage you take a disadvantage, and then underneath we would have example lineages that you could
Yeah.
use, or you can make your own.
So you could have like the Von Strad bloodline because it's D&D. You could have the Golthias bloodline.
Yeah.
You know, these are famous ones, and it could be, well, these are the things that they are weak to. Like the Golthias one is weak to being staked through the heart because that is what actually killed him. So all of his descendants now are, you know, incredibly weak to that. But then other bloodlines, like the Von Strad one, it might be like, you know, he gets, you know, paralyzed by it, maybe for a turn or two or something, or it's just not as effective. He has a different thing that is, you know, that's crucial to killing him, and you can base it off of the lore. And then obviously Dracula is the quintessential vampire, isn't he?
Obviously.
He's the sort of alpha above alpha, you know.
Yeah.
But then looking at the werewolf ones, I wanted to look at the different forms that you could potentially take.
Yeah, obviously the creature that you take that will change it.
What's the equivalent of bi but for a single? It's not mono because that's mono and stereo. What's the?
No, it is mono.
Is it mono?
Yeah,
and
like
then
a
bi
like
and then
a
tri.
I think so.
Doesn't sound right. I'm sure we're
Because it's like
Flashing
monorail and things like that.
numeral prefixes. There you go.
Yeah, mono bi.
Mono, bi, tri, quadra. Wait, that's ends in out. Okay, so yeah, so it would be. So we'd have monomorphic, because I love that word, morphic.
Morphic.
Great word that is, morphic. You'd have bimorphic, trimorphic. Oops. Biomorphic. That sounds terrifying. What kind of werewolf are we dealing with? Oh, it's a biomorphic. I'm sorry.
I'm
Sarah.
sorry.
The Strad one could be you get an item if destroyed, that if destroyed massively weakens you.
If you can use mono or uni, because you have a tricycle, a bicycle, and a unicycle. So it'd be uni for one. So it's whether you want unimorphic or monomorphic.
Uni.
One.
Oh, there you go.
Unicycle, bicycle.
Yeah, that
tricycle.
makes more sense for what we're going for.
So unimorphic.
Unimorphic. So, well, monomorphic is an actual word.
What?
Interesting. But bimorphic isn't. As Blue desperately tries to...
monomorphic, having or existing in one form.
So it is monomorphic then. Well, hang on. Why is it flagging up bimorphic then? Stick in bimorphic.
What is it?
It says biomorphic, but what's... Surely if there's a monomorphic, then there must be a bimorphic. Does it mean something really different? Bimorphism.
Bimorph, something that has two active layers. Bimorphism, a type of mathing in mathematics. I don't know. So basically...
Are you doing other forms as well, like bears, boars, or rates?
Rats.
Yes, we are doing statistical rates.
Shut up.
Stonks. Yeah, I mean it would work for all forms really. Essentially, it's basically pick your fursona for all you furry weirdos of like, what thing were you bitten by? Oh no, it's a werebadger. It's a were-trash panda.
Morphous literally means having shape, form, or structure is what morphous actually means. So when something is amorphous, it doesn't have any sort of shape, which is why you have amorphous oozes and things. So yeah, we're learning to get out the English language again, guys. Morphic does mean basically means shape or form. So yeah, monomorphic is a single form, bimorphic 2 forms, trimorphic 3 forms.
So monomorphic would be
Terry Pratchett was a very smart man.
animal form, hybrid form, or humanoid, I suppose is the best term, because this could be for like, you know, kobolds and Aarakocra and all.
Yeah,
that kind of
humanoid.
shit. So humanoid form.
That's how it's referred to in the book. So that's very funny to me that you could catch lycanthropy from something, but it could be a monomorphic strain, and so you then just become an animal and you're now stuck. That's a fun storyline of like, oh god, I'm now stuck as a cat.
Like Link. Like Link. You just get changed into
Oh god, it's just the plot of Twilight Princess.
math vampire. He drains accountants of their equations. Isn't a math vampire just a lawyer?
Hey!
Oh, political. Also a meth vampire.
Meth vampire. Eisenberg.
That was another thing as well I was thinking. For the bimorphics and the trimorphics would be how they're able to switch between forms. Obviously the most convenient one is you can just change at will whenever.
Yeah.
And the worst one is it is entirely out of your control, and it could be like, it's not just the full moon, it's like whenever it turns night. You know, that is how crap your strain is, of like anytime it turns night you transform. You know, that's you know, but then like the more strong ones would be you are forced to transform during the full moon, but other than that you can transform whenever.
Yeah, and the general basic one is werewolf can use its action to polymorph into the wolf hybrid, a wolf, or back to its humanoid form, which is an action. So this is another thing as well where we can add in things where it's like, oh, if you have this curse for a while and you start to get used to it and you try to utilize it, you could maybe start to transform as a bonus action, kind of like a Circle of the Moon Druid can. So we want to add in a little bit of like, oh, it can also get slightly stronger as you progress through the game, as a lot of stuff does.
There we go. So bimorphic, you can switch between animal and hybrid, animal and human, or hybrid and human. Those are all combinations, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yep. And then trimorphic is switches.
Oops, wrong line.
Just drop that down for us now.
Thanks Google. Press enter. Switches between any form freely, basically.
Switches between 3 forms. There you go. It's animal form, hybrid form, and humanoid form. Now, lawyers are a bard subclass from the school of fuckery. I like the anger-based transformation, so kind of Hawk. Yeah, that could be good. Emotion-based.
Yeah, that's one thing. Transformation conditions. So there's.
That's an awesome one. That's a great one to roleplay, isn't it? Like a barbarian one.
Yeah.
Why don't you like to rage in battle? Because bad things will happen. But that's good, isn't it? No, it's really not. Or like a monk. That's why someone is taking down the monk path. They're looking to focus.
Oh my god, a werewolf
Zen,
monk. That's
a werewolf
hilarious.
monk. So if they go angry, they use all their werewolf abilities, and so they deliberately try and stay calm, so they have control over their powers. That's sick. That's the kind of stuff you want to be able to roleplay, but it's not included in D&D as it currently is.
Yeah. So transformation conditions: lunar cycles, emotional transformations, and
Free will.
and at will.
I'll just put that free will.
So there's at least with like emotional and lunar, there'll be variations on that. So lunar cycle is like you are forced to transform every night.
Which would obviously be the shittiest one because it's the one you have the least control over.
Yeah.
Like what Tala has with her getting hit, gets angy stuff. I like how we had a Norwegian here who has a better grasp of the English language than anyone who has
You're
come
talking
into-
about my character, and I'm still not entirely sure what you just said.
Angy stuff, when you get angy.
The angy stuff,
Yeah.
you know, the angy stuff.
You know, like when people speak and then you get angy. That's basically all I've taken away from Carl's campaign.
No talk, me angy.
Why have you gotten angry? Because Thane said. Thane said what? Because Thane said!
Motherfucker opened his mouth again.
Until he gets hit below a certain health threshold. Yeah. Vitality. Or would that be under free will?
Yeah, that's a Blood Hunter thing rather than obviously a standard D&D thing, because the Blood Hunter made it more interesting, which is find the actual wording so you can read it. Bloodless. If you begin your turn with no more than half of your maximum hit points, you must succeed a Wisdom saving throw, or move directly towards the nearest creature to you and use the attack action against that creature.
There you go. So there's another state, vitality.
Yep. Yeah. Again, we'll keep free will at the bottom just because it is the most basic one that doesn't have any flavour of just.
Well, it will have some flavour because it will have like overwriting things, or maybe it's like it's free will, but it still has to be night. So just because it turns nighttime, it doesn't mean you have to change, but you can change when it is night. That would come under free will. You know, you're not always forced to change, but it's like you've essentially been given the trigger. So the best free will obviously is just a case of it doesn't matter what the conditions are, what your health is like, or how angry or calm you are. The best free will is just you can do it whenever, and those are the scariest werewolves, but also the best ones because it's like they have the most control. But then that can also be a bad thing. Who let the dogs out? Drink time!
Health gets low. We'll put below half, but that could be various levels depending on. Actually, let's put level can depend on your heritage, or on your lineage, I guess.
that's a good one by Gandium.
Hmm.
Under Vitality, their condition is that the first time they drop to 0 hit points, they instead drop to 1 and they transform.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know if I'd say drop to 1, that would be a bit shit. I'd say that they would have, like, you know, they would regain so much hit points or something, or, you know, just so that then it's like they're going to last. Because if it's like 1 hit points, it could be, if it's someone's turn, you drop to 0 hit points. I instead drop to 1 and transform. Okay, they hit you again. Okay, I'm dead. And that would just be a bit kind of, you know, a weird spasm moment of as you took damage, you changed form and then died as a wolf. What happened to him? I think he sneezed. I think he got hit so hard he sneezed. Or gain temp HP equal to 1 or 2 times their level. Yeah, something like that. They gain sort of one hit point, but then you gain temporary hit points.
D&D started doing this thing now where they use proficiency bonus a lot, so we could probably utilise that if we wanted to as well.
Yeah, 4 times your proficiency or something has held back.
So you know, the more you're playing the game and the more levels you're getting, the better you are getting at stuff, which is how you want games to be.
Yep. I'll just put under emotional ones Angie. There we go. I think we'll all understand.
Oh
what
yeah,
that
that's
means.
clear for everybody watching.
Actually, no, I'll put in a second one. Come for the ideas, stay for the bands.
Yeah.
at Thane. You're gonna ask his Twitter account.
Yep. I can always do this. Yeah.
Sounds like an email address. Is that Tala's email address?
Angry@thane.com.
Where's Curls when you need her?
It's still very warm in this flat, and the heating's been off for a while.
I think that's just you now, because I'm quite cool.
Let's
open a window. Is it window time? There you go, window's open.
It's only 4 o'clock, so I don't know if we should consider going for a walk.
But this is fun.
I know it's fun, but also it's getting dark.
Okay, should we go for a walk? Should we put a brain check on this and come back to it afterwards?
Let's keep going until 4.
Alright, well, 7 minutes. Oh.
Let's finish jotting down these ideas that we've come up with for now.
Here's a crazy idea. The transformations are based on time duration, so every X hours they change with no control over when it happens. That's cool, but that might be hard to track. You know, for long campaigns. Like, I like the idea of it. It's almost like the portals in the DMG. They do say that there are some portals that do just activate on a time thing. So it's like you roll a dice, and it's like every X number of hours or days or something that it happens. But over long campaigns, that could be a difficult one to track, especially if it's random each time. So I like it. I just don't know how you would translate that. Like in a book, it'd be easy to do because you'd already have it pre-noted on basically. I'm going to tailor it to your change every so many hours, and those are the hours when the most interesting things are going to happen to this character. But in terms of a game, that might be hard. Like day and night is a lot easier to track, isn't it? There's a big window, and it's pretty obvious when it's available. It's like tracking weather in D&D. As much as I like, see you later, man. That's enough.
But yes, might talk to you later tonight if you're online. Don't know.
Pending queue.
Pending queue. Ugh.
Yeah, what was I saying?
Oh, we were talking about the time.
Oh yeah, the time thing. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it might occasionally become too hard to track, and like with weather, as cool as weather is to add to a D&D world, you don't normally, while you're DMing, roll a dice to be like, weather change. It's something that you've kind of pre-planned, isn't it? This is going to be like wet and miserable. This is going to be normal weather and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that kind of throws you off if you haven't planned it. If a player's like, "What's the weather doing at the moment, DM?" You go, it's clear. It's just it's cloudy, whatever."
Yeah, unless you specifically want like a storm or something.
Yeah.
So I like it. I don't know if we could get it to work. It'd be one of them weird cruxes of like no one can really calculate this.
Weather's one of the few things DMs can control.
Until the druid steps up. What's the weather like? It's overcast. No, it's sunny. Fine,
DM just flips. Can't have shit in Detroit. Okay. lunar cycle. So
you're forced to transform.
Every night you're forced to transform. Every night there's a full moon.
So you're forced to transform under direct moonlight. No, well,
that's another
Yeah.
alternate thing.
yeah. Every night there is a.
They
full
add
moon.
a new line.
Yeah, that does make sense.
You're forced to transform when you are in direct moonlight.
I don't know whether we'd need to put one of direct full moonlight.
It's a little
bit
too specific.
So, if it's nighttime, full moon, direct moonlight. So, direct moonlight would definitely be the second worst one there, because that could be any moon cycle.
Yeah.
Apart from no moon.
Put under free will. Able to change. At any time, provided it is nighttime. Provided it's night.
And then we could also have the you are able to change at any time, provided you are at or below half health.
Fair enough.
As a kind of a last stand sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or what is it they have in Final Fantasy? A limit break? I activate my limit break.
Limit break.
So, transform when you're reduced to 0 hit points and regain health. Force transform when your health gets below half, I suppose, is there.
Hello, Hast. I think we've changed topics since you were last here. Unfortunately, we're also getting to the point of wrapping up.
Yeah. I don't know whether you want to continue with this when we come back from the war club. It's up to you.
We can do. Might have to start thinking about cooking dinner and stuff by then.
That's true. What other emotional states are there that could cause a transformation? Because having just the one seems a bit...
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things that depends on lineage, but you could have, I guess there's anger, but you could also have extreme excitement. Like a puppy.
That could work.
Because then you've got the whole thing... You know what? It just adds to it. You know what? It just adds to it. It's fine.
What are your guys' thoughts on curing lycanthropy? I don't actually know how you cure lycanthropy. I mean, obviously it's D&D, so regardless of whatever you say, there's always going to be a spell. Somewhere out there, there's going to be a specific spell of cure lycanthropy.
The basic in D&D is lycanthropy is still considered a curse, so the spell remove curse does get rid of it. I think in some, it's very much like with vampires and stuff. A lot of it is there's loads of interpretations. So in some interpretations, Wolfbane just kills a werewolf, but in some cases, a Wolfbane will cure lycanthropy, so it kills the werewolf but not the person.
Yeah.
I've heard similar stories again for Silver as well.
Yeah, it's like I understand Wish, but I don't like to put too much, too much of a stake on the Wish spell, because Wish is already a powerful enough spell as it is. So when you get to 9th level, adding more and more reasons as to why you should just take Wish, it gets a little bit boring for me. You know, like with the Tarrasque, like we killed the Tarrasque. No, you didn't, because you didn't cast Wish on it. Well, so basically we lost this because we didn't come with a wizard. Is essentially what you're saying there. We have a kick-ass party that can do so much damage, but because we didn't bring the guy that has the spell, you know, why isn't it, you know, this guy doesn't die unless he's killed by someone raging? That's just as specific. You know, why does it have to be that specific spell? So I don't like to put too much stock in one spell. Like Wish obviously should be able to cure it, but it shouldn't be the only thing, because then that's very limiting, you know. Does every campaign have a wizard with a
because
9th level
we're back to a similar issue that we have here, where it's like, oh, you become a lycan, so you're evil now, and it's like, oh, what? Come on.
Yeah.
So you know,
there needs to be a variety of methods.
So some people will obviously be content and be happy with like, cool, I'm a werewolf now. But you may have people who, because of the character they're playing or whatever, will just be like, well, I don't want to be a werewolf, and if they just get given a tough shit, then that's not going to be fun to play. And that's the key thing to remember with video games, is that games are meant to be fun.
Yeah, I'd be happy for there to be a multitude of options, because in a world where this is a genuine problem, you know, lycanthropy is a real thing that they have to deal with, and it's common enough where it's like the populace at large does fear for werewolves because of the things they do, but there are those that are higher up and more educated that are like, okay, this is like an outbreak of smallpox or something. Like, the people who have it aren't necessarily evil, and they can be saved, and some of them want to be saved, so we can do things to try and save them. So there could be like alchemists that work on some kind of potion, working with stuff like wolfbane or silver and stuff. There could be people who forge certain items like rings or something, that it's like, while you wear this, you're fine. Yeah. As soon as you lose this ring,
because that's essentially the storyline of why Worgen came to be in World of Warcraft. Of like they originated from a druid form that went out of control because the god or whatever that was in charge of that form, the wolf, was feral and just sort of went attacking, and the Gilneans got infected with it. But the Night Elves, I believe it was, felt very guilty because it was their fault that this like plague of druid forms burst out. So they basically, using Elune and stuff, made a potion that basically cured it, but it didn't get rid of lycanthropy. It just gave them their senses back, which basically invented Worgen.
Right.
That's how they came to be. So the little like intro, you know, level 1, you're playing a Worgen cutscene. Is, you know, if you're just a human, you get bitten by a werewolf, it's then a cutscene of like the entire city being overrun with werewolves. Then as a werewolf you get captured, and then when you next have control of your character, you're in a pair of stocks because you've basically been given this draft and you've come to your senses, but you're a Worgen now. So that's another prime example of like, well, maybe there's just like a potion that can be made with wolfsbane that doesn't necessarily get rid of lycanthropy, but just makes it so that you can control it better. Again, this is one of the like options that could come in your lineage of like, your particular strain of lycanthropy could be cured by this, but this particular strain of lycanthropy can't be cured by this because it depends on your heritage.
Because you also got to think as well that the term cure, it could be like the X-Men. Maybe some werewolves don't want to be cured.
Yeah.
So this could be something where it's like, you know, it's a saving throw, and some people are going to want to fail that saving throw, and some people are going to want to succeed that saving throw. I do not wish to be cured.
Yep.
This is who I am. So, but to take it to the point up here, he's put on a slight tangent. I've all but removed alignment from the game at the table. It's a carryover rule from older editions that didn't translate well at all. I do partially agree with that, because in the older versions, things like lawful good or being lawful or being good were things that were necessary for spells, but I like to hold on to them as a kind of a catch-all of like, whereabouts do you fall, and you can give people a kind of rough estimate on where you are. You know what I mean? If someone says to you they're chaotic good, that gives you a sense of what kind of character you're dealing with. It doesn't tell you everything about their personality, but it's like, okay, I can get a gist on whether or not our characters are going to get along. Like, we're both good, so that's fine, but I'm lawful and you're chaotic, so that means that there's going to be some tension.
Yeah.
You know, we agree on a lot of things, but maybe method is going to be an issue. Whereas if it's like, you know, I'm lawful good, you're lawful evil, you know, we agree on some things, but then we definitely disagree on other things, you know, black and white in that sense. So I use it as more of a spectrum, as, you know, this is to gauge. You know, it's like when you meet someone, you say, well, you know, well, what's that person like? And it's like, oh, they're incredibly sarcastic. And it's like, well, if you don't like sarcastic people, you're probably not going to get along with them. But it might be when you talk to them, you go, oh, okay, they are sarcastic, but they're not like mean sarcastic. They don't make insulting sarcasm. They just, you know, they make a lot of quips or something, or, you know, they're very light-hearted. So it's like just nailing them down as one thing. It can give you an idea, but it's not definitive. So that's how I look at it, at least. In older editions, there were actual mechanical benefits to alignments, like you could only recruit specific followers. I remember that from Matt Colville talking about that, like the paladins that he always used to play, being able to get like, you know, unicorns and pegasi and that kind of stuff, because they were those specific kind of those were the same alignments, and they were you know, stereotypical of, you know, people of that alignment.
Yeah.
I get my players to rate their character on a scale of selfish to altruistic. I like the word altruistic. I'm assuming that simply means selfless. We run it more as a guide. You can justify it properly. You may do some actions and just plain up know you a lawful good cleric would not just go behind the stall of fruits and take all their gold and hit them with a club. Yeah, I mean, this was something that we wanted to do for the homebrew whenever we look at improving the paladin, or taking another look at it. I shouldn't say improving, but making our own version of the paladin, because there's a classic example that you can use where it proves that alignment does not justify the actions that you can take. If you're in a situation where, as a lawful good paladin, you have a notoriously evil character in front of you who has been disarmed and is at your mercy and is requesting that you let them live, a lawful good paladin, you could argue both that killing them is justified because of the evil that they've committed, and that you don't trust that they are true to their word and that they will lie just to get a second chance at life to go on and continue to do evil, at which point you are then liable for that because you had the chance to prevent it and you didn't. But on the other hand, you could say, well, as a lawful good paladin, you would follow the law, and a disarmed person that is asking you for mercy, the whole point of you becoming a paladin was to help people who are in need of mercy. So you can argue both points, you know, definitively, and say, well, you know, you should definitely kill them and you should definitely not kill them. So just because you're lawful good does not define what your actions do, but they can give you an idea on how you behave in a lot of situations, and can give a lot of drama to when you do something that one person might say, well, you should let them live, and then if you do kill them, it's like, well, I've now got some questions to ask your character. I feel very differently about what you've done and about how you define yourself as a person. And it's all you know, it's all grey area. Even though lawful good is not black or white, it is a grey area.
Everything's grey area.
It's all down to how you justify it. Like, evil people, for the most part, aren't Saturday morning cartoon villains. They believe what they are doing is good. You know, like Hitler, for example, the classic character of the most evil person in the last sort of 100 years. He believed he was doing a good thing. He did not believe himself to be evil. Even though, you know, because we were opposed to him, we are like, yes, you definitely were evil. To him, he thought he was a good person.
Yeah.
He thought he was doing the right thing for humanity. So that's how, you know, alignment is not black or white. It is a very grey area. It's all about your perspective. How do you see the world? So,
yeah.
You know, Blood and Sand was a great group because no one in it apart from me was bloody good, and we were supposed to be the good guys, but we still did things to save the world.
We weren't evil. We were just we were all very neutral.
Yeah.
We were all just kind of like, we were literally all the Star-Lord of the group of like, why do you want to save the world? Because we happen to live in it.
Yeah. I was the only good character who was genuinely.
It was like we need to help people and save people, and then we were all just like, why? People are trash. Anyway, we got off topic very heavily there.
Yeah, well, we're going to wrap up now. We're going to go for a walk, and we might be back on afterwards. It depends on how Blue's feeling, because I will happily talk about this kind of crap all night. I love doing this stuff. It's nice to have an audience and to get stuff written down and to have you focused.
I've told you before, it helps a lot.
It helps for you to stream because you get off your phone or having Final Fantasy on in the background of like, I'm just doing this raid.
I can't play Final Fantasy, the queues are too big.
No one cares.
I want to play Final Fantasy.
Oh, look at that, Dash is playing Final Fantasy.
No, he's not. He's in the queue and he will be for the next 3 hours. He's preemptively queuing for when he finishes his dinner.
Alright, go on then. Let's wrap it up.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up the stream. We might be back later. Don't know. Keep an eye on Twitter. Basically, you can see my Twitter down in the description. We will tweet out if we're gonna go stream again. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thank you for following as well. Very much appreciated. Hopefully, we will see you guys again in the future for more D&D stuff. If you couldn't tell from this big list of things, thanks, Hun. I haven't even turned the stream off yet.
Oh, gotta go. Bye.
Get over here! Get on this camera! Unprofessional.
What do you mean unprofessional?
Unprofessional. It just turns off the camera. Right.
Yeah, I'm off. See you later.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna walk it. Bye. Stream's over. Game over, boys.
Thanks, everybody. If we don't see you the next time, I'll see you is on Tuesday when I do my weekly art stream where I draw stuff. Take care, guys, and yeah, see you later. Bye.